Welcome to the Bachelor Universe podcast. I am your host, Jim Alexander. I'm trying to sound like the boxing guy, the hype boxing guy that puts it up.
Let's get ready to grumble.
Yeah, right, that's about to happen. The voice you hear on the far end is Jeff York.
Hello, everyone.
The regular co-host. Hello, Jeff.
Hello, my friend.
Paige is missing again.
She's working tonight. So sorry. She sends her thoughts and condolences.
No, wait, you know what? Condolences on the final episode of this podcast for a bit.
Yes.
Yeah. Paige, thanks for bailing on us when we needed. Whatever.
I think it was too painful for her.
Well, it might be. I mean, we do have a lot to talk about. We have to talk about the finale of The Bachelor, Jeff, the final countdown, the final event. Ari's final decision that was hyped and manipulated and talked about how big it is and how it's going to change everything.
Yeah, it was supposed to be the most dramatic finale ever, and it might have been in Bachelor history comparatively, but I will say this. It was excruciating to watch that unedited footage. I know we'll get into it, but it was really kind of pathetic in a way that they let it go on that long, but we'll get into it. We first have to go on to the final dates or whatever, I guess, before we get to...
What do you even count that? Well, that's when we did. So the show start out, and we get to visit again with our favorites, which is Ari's family, who seems pretty normal, actually, you know, as opposed to him at times very questionable. But yeah, Ari's family was there, and were they in Peru? I don't even remember.
Yes, they were. They were in Peru, yeah. And his family shows up and basically ends up kind of questioning Ari. Like, they weren't sure that they were really thinking that he was having his head on straight about all this. So Ari kind of sat there like a mope on a rope with his family, too, going, yeah, well, and they definitely had opinions about who they like best.
They sure did. And like, first one is like, why did they like Lauren so much?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I think that I don't know. I mean, I think that they found her a little bland or something. Maybe she just doesn't come off with much personality, you know?
They did. No, they did like her. The mother liked her. Like, I was wondering, how did they like her?
Oh, but I mean, they didn't think she was the one that he should pick, right? Didn't they think Becca was the one?
Switched. Yeah, they flipped later. But initially, it was just like, that's why I didn't understand how they gave her all this love and adoration, and then only to switch their pick. Like, after they saw Becca, kind of raw deal here when she met him, because they kind of were just talking up Lauren for some reason, and it was awkward, to say the least.
Yeah, it was. And, you know, Lauren came off fine, I think. You know, they thought she was cool, but yeah, they talked a little bit too much about her with Becca. But I thought Becca handled herself.
She did
very well, and she came off calm and mature, and you know, she seemed to have her wits about her the whole time, and she was personable and talkative. So I don't know. I thought based on that, just what we were shown as an audience, she came out a little bit in the lead there, and I think the family thought so too. Correct?
Yeah, it was a weird kind of change of. I think the mother was set on Lauren for some reason, and the father was too, and he really made Becca feel weird by bringing up Lauren's name and all that.
Right.
Constantly. And then, I don't know what happened. I think they, like, after they met both women, they kind of flipped, and I think they did the smart thing. I think they thought about it, and they're like, hey, you know what? Lauren is too immature, like, she's not mature enough, and Becca is for him.
Yeah, I think, you know, I keep saying this, and we've sort of talked about this before, but Lauren is a little bit girlish or bland and not quite as filled in, I think. But I keep going back to what our friend said, who gave you that nice compliment about this show. In
John.
that what? John, was
John. Who emailed us again? We have another email.
Oh, I love that. He was so good. And I kept thinking about what he said during the entire 3 or 4 hours of this shebang. But Lauren is a athlete's wife. She has that MO that everything the athlete does is about him, and it has to be, and needs a woman who sort of understands that. And there's not really the need for an equal. And not saying that Becca was necessarily overwhelming to Ari, but Lauren is definitely mousy, quiet, waiting on Ari to tell her this and that, and almost kind of waiting for his affirmation. And that gives him affirmation. And that is the very typical sort of cliche, but often true. Cliches are such because they are so often the de rigueur, sports wife who understands that the athlete has to worry about his body, his world. He's in rarefied air. It's very unusual to be able to make it in any kind of athletic endeavor and be one of the best in the business. Even if Ari isn't one of the best in the business, he still is a professional race car driver for a while. And that mentality needs a woman who understands all that and doesn't come in with their needs, because the athlete needs to train and sleep, and he's got the big race, and he can die, and he's got the big game, and he's can lose so much, and it's all them serving the athlete's ego. And that's what Lauren did for him. Yeah.
And they, we knew that this was his type. And the weird thing is the family, as they keep on saying that, Becca's the more mature one and she kind of, balances you out better and all this. Ari was almost waiting to hear a different response. I don't think he was having it. From what it seems, that he was almost hoping that they said, well, it's Lauren for sure. And, like they initially did. And he didn't want them to kind of say Becca. I think he needed that reinforcement. And later on, as we find out, this was a key, I think, point.
Yeah. And I think the big one that, again, sort of plays into the problem that Ari's had with a lot of this whole season, and he's admitted himself that, well, I wasn't following my heart, which is such malarkey, because I think when you pick a partner, you have to follow more of your head, because you have to think about the logic of how you're going to live with them and whether you can get along with them. It's easy to love people, not so easy to live with people. But I thought it was extraordinary that when he finally goes back to his family, his dad is basically saying that he thinks Becca's right for him, and she'll even give him, a little bit of a kick in the ass that he probably needs, which was, the hard ass dad kind of telling him, son, you need some shaping up here, because you're still kind of out there in the desert wandering around. And you could see in Ari's face that he knew that he needed that was what his dad has probably been telling him all of his life. But he didn't like it. There was just that quiet seething going on. Yes. And I honestly think in hindsight, that's where he was mad and decided to almost spite his dad and spite Becca, even if he's not wholly aware of it, because how dare you? And Dad, I'm my own man. And I'm 36 now, going on 37. And yet his dad is still talking to him like he's some goofy 16-year-old who doesn't know who to ask to the prom.
Exactly. It's just that he wanted
to go back and throw his dad's advice away, even though he originally took it. But this is his way of sort of saying, to hell with you, Dad, and hell with your better, proper pick for me.
Right. Exactly. So definitely that was a noticeable thing. You could tell and see that he was not pleased, and this is not what he wanted to hear from the family. So there's that kind of give you an insight, in a sense, as to what he's thinking at that point. So then we the whole episode is basically back and forth in the studio with Chris Harrison. We have our new spokesperson for this season is Caroline. That's
exactly. Official. Caroline suddenly becomes the Dr. Joyce Brothers or Ann Landers or Dr. Phil about all this. And who is she? Oh, that's right. She went away on the 3rd episode. She was sent home by the 3rd or 4th episode. And yet here she is dominating the studio talk.
I like her so much. She was my favorite. Too. But this is too much. She's got no credibility in this situation. Well, I mean, she might be friends with these girls, but honestly, you can't just come in and suddenly be the spokesperson for this season, and we haven't seen any of you all season long.
And who is she to take that role? I mean, for starters, Beck is friends with a lot of the girls there, and probably better friends with people like Cian and Becca M, who lasted longer. I'm sure Kendall, I think all three of those girls probably have much more claim on a friendship with Becca, who would be the types of friends then who would have her back because they've been through, that's right, a whole nother month of the experience than Caroline has. But Caroline just comes on like, she's the witness for the defense or something. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's just like, and she's like, she got this rage and anger in her apparently, and she's doing the talking. It's like, okay, slow it down here. You're getting too much attention technically for someone that, if it would be fine if it was like a TR, someone who we've seen all season, but not someone that no one even recognizes, just because she's friends with them backstage and behind the scenes.
Do you know what Becca M said on her Entertainment Tonight interview online? She said that she thought that exactly what, you will, because she agrees with us. She said she thought it was out of place for her to say that. And she threw some shade. Caroline? Yeah, on camera. And she said she threw some shade saying that she likes Caroline, but she was speaking a little bit out of turn, having gone home so early in the process. And to put the cherry on top of that little bitter cake, she said at the end of the day, she thought it was really Caroline's audition to get invited to Bachelor in Paradise.
I agree.
By being one of the people who stood out in the studio special.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And she's trying to create a persona for herself as this, fighter for, the ultimate best friend who fights for her girlfriends. And, she's so outspoken and she's got later on, she said something else that I'm going to bring up too in the tell-all that kind of like it took me aback for a second. But enough about Caroline. We're giving her too much attention here, even though I think she's awesome and super hot, and I would have picked her. But Lauren's date with Ari, they're going to Machu Picchu. Okay, so they're going to go on to the mountain hiking. And the best thing I think Lauren says here, she's like, she was so impressed with it. And she's just like, she utters something along the lines of like, she's like, oh, this is a place I read about in books at school. It's like, you know what, Lauren, you probably should be at school. You're probably like college aged. Okay. And it's like, it makes me think, it's like, oh my God, you're with this old guy and you're like talking about you remembering this probably like a year or two ago, learning about this stuff in the history class or something.
I know she kept saying she wasn't cool, and she sort of seemed like the nerdy student, though she doesn't really look like the student. But yeah, she's easily swayed again there by sort of acquiescing to Ari. Oh, he's so much more worldly and mature. And she's just young, and all I've experienced is reading this in books. And teach me, Papa, teach me, older man, teach me, teacher. Ugh.
It was just that kind of thing. It's like, she's impressed by it. But here's one thing I took away, Jeff, and I've noted this on my review on my blog, thebacheloruniverse.com, and on Real Talker, that I took a screenshot of this. I love taking these screenshots of Ari, whether he has a hickey or some kind of thing I notice on him. Here's what I noticed. My goodness, this man has I don't know how to describe the quintessential chicken noodle legs. I mean, my goodness, this man's legs were like Lauren's almost when they were standing side by side. You got to go on my blog and check out this screenshot I took. It's like, I thought Lauren's legs were thicker than Ari's. Like, this man is so rail thin. It's like, I'm not hating, I'm not man shaming, but I'm just like, give this man some, he's got to eat the props. Now I know why he was eating the props all season long. Like, this guy is just so thin. I didn't realize. It just kind of gave me a perspective of like how Ari looks fully, because we never got to see him shirtless. Not that I care or anything, but like we never got to see. They were kind of hiding his whole look. You always see him from like waist up, but like seeing him stand, he seems like a tall guy, but my goodness, he's such a thin guy. I kind of felt bad. I don't know. I felt
no. I agree with you. He looked good in that tight, very fitted blue suit for the final rose ceremony. Oh but he's too skinny, and he's never looked healthy the entire season. He always looks pasty and pale, and he sweats a lot, and there's no muscle definition, and there's nothing about him that even suggests the big Ari the lover that Courtney Robertson or all of them mashing with the girls in the different shows and in the previous episodes of the season would suggest, he never seems very alive or roguish or masculine. Yeah. I mean, you say what you will about how awful Juan Pablo was. There was something roguishly cocky and virile and sort of muscular when he'd walk in a room. I mean, he looked like that soccer player who, still had the buff body, but this guy just looks like the kind of person that get the sand kicked in his face at the beach.
Yeah. I mean, it really
he'd probably fall asleep under the under the umbrella at the beach. He never looks like he's rested.
Yeah, it just looked alarming to me. Like, my goodness, this man is so thin.
This show is wearing on me. I can barely keep my eyes open. Where's my shawl sweater? Can we eat at Denny's? It's 5:00. Let's go.
Ugh. Lauren had so many great, lines, and she's like, another one was like, she's like, well, when she talks to him after the date, after they're hugging and hiking around the Machu Picchu, she's like, well, I like to thank you for willing to work with me. And it's like, I'm thinking to myself, like, willing to work on, what was this, like a homework assignment or something? Like, willing to work with her. It's like, what is he, a therapist? It's just like, it's such a weird thing for her to say. It's like, thank you, Ari, for willing to work with me. It's like, my goodness. If a girl's telling you that there's a problem in this relationship, you have to, quote unquote, work with her,
this is where I think the producers are really actually very shrewd sometimes, where they show us, yes, they're cynical. Yes, it's shameful. Yes, it's cringeworthy television at times. And yet a lot of it is subtly and sort of cleverly true. What they are showing here is the kind of girl that he really wants, even though his parents tell him Becca's better suited and Becca will kick his ass a little bit and she's got it all together and mature the more they think about it. He rejects that because he wants the subservient girl. He wants the girl who thinks that the sun rises and sets in his experience and his maturity. And, he's the man. He's in control. He's the teacher. She's just the lowly student. Oh, please let me sit and learn everything from you. And Ari needs that. He needs that acquiescence.
Yeah, for sure. He likes being praised and told how great he is in a sense. And Lauren's the perfect girl to do that because she's impressed by everything he does, because she just lacks life experience. And that's the thing. And whatever he does, it's like she thinks is the coolest thing ever, Well,
let's come back to that point too, Jim, later on, because I think her reaction to all of everything that happened in the dramatic season finale is as insipid and sort of vacuous and I would dare say vapid in her response there as well. But we'll get more of that later. But I think as I'm watching her through this whole season, she seems like a pleasant enough, cute enough girl. But at the end of the day, I think she's woefully inexperienced, woefully underdeveloped in a point of view, any kind of worldliness. And frankly, I think she's vapid. When you compare Cian and Becca M and Kendall, who had liveliness to them and personality and energy and were kind of leading the conversation, asking Ari questions, pushing it. He likes Lauren because she's just like, tell me what to think and show me what you know because I don't know anything. She's such a blank slate that he could almost write in whatever story he wants on her as long as she's cute and looks at him with that worshipful gaze.
Another great thing that happened there, it's like when they're like sitting over, I guess drinks or, the night portion of the date. And they talk about like, Ari kind of brings up the fact like, well, what do you think our life's going to look like together? And she has it pictured out. So she knows exactly what life's going to be like him. And she starts describing him as like, well, we're going to go to work. We're going to come home together, have a glass of wine. And it's like, first of all, hold on. Let me think this through, Lauren. So you're going to come home together go to work, come home together. That's assuming like you're working at the same job or something, that your schedules are lined up identically, that you're coming home together. Then you're going to have a glass of wine together.
She'll be a secretary at the real estate office.
Right. Which is like crucial, having the wine, because that's their only like Bachelor connection from the show, how they drink wine together.
I'll need to drink to get through that night.
On the weekends, maybe take the dogs to the park and see the family. So to me, it's like, okay, maybe you will visit the family. So maybe they'll be there every weekend, maybe once a month, maybe once a year. And then maybe the dogs will go to a park. I mean, for fuck's sake, where are these dogs supposed to go for a walk or run? Are they going to be like pissing all over the house? It's like maybe Lauren's going to take him out, during the weekend for a walk. It's like, my goodness, these people should not have pets, first of all, if that's the thing. It's like, that's their life. That is the big plan that she can't even confirm and like actually say that, yeah, we're going to be taking dogs out on weekends. Like, maybe. It's not even 100% sure. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake, Lauren, what is this plan? It is awful life that you're envisioning.
And about the best that Ari could really throw in, other than, that's great, or I love that.
He said that's funny. His response,
that's funny, was he talked a little bit about he really wants to have kids, which again, I think a man who decides, oh gosh, the clock is ticking. Right, I need to find the wife who wants to be the baby machine for me. That isn't love. That isn't really connecting with somebody. That's finding all but an employee, and you're employing her as your wife and mother of your children. And it's so one-sided. So, well, I want to have kids now because I'm old enough and I've done all my other stuff and I'm ready to settle down. That's never a good reason to get married with somebody. That's never a real reason to say that person is right for you. She's a facilitator. Really, that's what that is. It's facilitating his goals. It's like the girls who, okay, I'm done with college. I've worked in the workforce for a couple of years. Gosh darn it, if I'm 25 and I'm not engaged yet, I'm behind the curveball here. I got to get going. I need to get engaged by 25. So whatever boyfriend she's with, that boyfriend has to be kind of the boyfriend. He's got to be the long-termer, because she can't be thinking, well, I'm 29, 30. I still haven't found Mr. Right yet. For some women, that's just tantamount to disaster. And I honestly think that Ari's doing the same kind of goofy cliche thing now. Well, now that I'm in my mid-30s, I've sown my wild oats. I've slept with probably 50 women or 14 women or whatever the hell his number is. And now I'm ready to settle down and have the woman who wants to be my baby maker. That isn't about love and anything really romantic. I think that's about scheduling.
Yeah, no, totally. So mercifully that date ends, and then we have Becca's date, and so they're back in the streets of Cusco, and once again, you always, whenever you have a foreign country date, you have like some Bachelor things that just have to happen. They're just like things that are Bachelor must. And that's always have a random child escape their parents, like some 4 or 5-year-old kid, running away from their parents' clutches to run into Ari and his date, or run into the Bachelor couple date. This time it's like some little child girl who bumps into them on the streets when Ari's walking under an umbrella. It's like, can we just stop doing this? Can we stop having random kids, just like, I don't know if they're missing or their, parents are looking for them, just run into these Bachelor couple dates. Because, you don't go to a third world country or any country, even, a country like, France or anything, have random kids running into you constantly. That just doesn't happen these days.
I know, and it's like they keep wanting to push that narrative. Like, see, Ari really wants to have kids. That's his big goal, and he's looking for the handmaid's tale who will deliver him those children. And look, we're going to throw all these children around to show that that's really where his head is at. And heaven forbid if that woman isn't there either. So she better be good with these kids. Let's see how she plays kickball. It's kind of insidious, but again, they're playing into his rather cliched and, I dare say, sexist sort of agenda.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And it's ridiculous. They just need to stop doing it on every Bachelor show. This and random children.
The one time in this whole thing too that I thought Becca came off kind of bad is when she's got this scrapbook, which somebody always seems to have a scrapbook.
We're going to get to that, Jeff.
Okay.
We're getting to that. Yeah. So yeah, I think the best part of it was the alpacas. This whole part of this whole date.
Yeah. How is Becca with animals? If she can pet a big llama, then maybe she can be good with a child. It's all furry, weird creatures that you can't control. So.
So then you get to this point. So then they go to their night portion of the day where the kids aren't running into them, and Ari doesn't have to hold the umbrella. With his, with
it was
all
raining,
his
wasn't it?
Right, yeah, because he had to hold it tightly because he might melt under the rain.
Shitty weather during that whole time, it seems. It wasn't like, did we know that Peru was the rainy season? Why did we pick Peru? We've never been here before. We got a deal in the hotel. Shit, it's not enough. It's terrible weather. Thank God we had the llama.
So then they had their little chit chat in the hotel, discussing nonsense. And then the scrapbook comes, which you're talking about. So Becca has all the time in the world to put together a scrapbook with all sorts of pictures of him. Like, how does she even get pictures of him? Like, listen, I've been with women for like 7 years. They couldn't even find a picture of me and her together,
She's taking cell phone pictures off the TV screen,
And then the most creepiest thing of them all, she has a page on our first baby. It's like, it says our first baby, and it's like, oh my goodness, it's a blank page. It's a blank page waiting for like a picture. Unreal.
And see, that's so kowtowing and catering and really shameless kind of cowering to him, like, oh, I must give you the air, I must give you the sun, like it's some sort of monarchy from centuries ago, like he's King Henry VIII. Unless she can sire me a son, she's worthless. And she puts a damn scrapbook. Who knows where this could go? I mean, can you imagine any of these people if somebody had an awful illness or maybe was unable to have children and they had to adopt? Would that be a deal breaker for Ari? Probably, because I think his ego wants this perfect little cornball romantic story that has no room for improvisation in it.
Yeah. It was just ridiculous. It was weird. It was so like desperate woman kind of thing that made her look bad. Here's our baby. It's like, my goodness. First of all, he hasn't even picked you yet. And second of all, it's like you went on 6 dates with him maybe? It's like, oh, unreal.
Well, see, Jim, and I know this is kind of cutting to the chase, and I don't want to cut to the chase here, but this is the thing, I think, which is the fundamental core flaw of the show. While it is incredibly popular and we love to laugh about it, and it's so bad it becomes good in its weird way. But this show, I think, would have a certain amount of cachet or credibility if it would get rid of the
We'll get to
but it's always having to leading towards, oh, we're going to get married and we're going to have the babies. And I've only been out with you really on 4 dates. I mean, you would never say that somebody was your girlfriend after just 4 dates with her. I think you'd say, after 4 months with her, yes, we're dating each other exclusively now. But on this show, 4 dates means you're ready to get down on the knee. And that's where these relationships fail. It's the fundamental flaw. If the Bachelor's goal was for you to find love, can you find love on this show? Can you stand at the end and say, here's my final rose to you. You're the person who I like the most, I've fallen in love with in this strange but quick 3 months journey. I think everybody would applaud the show and go, wow, that's great. I hope for the best. But instead it has to go into marriage and babies. And
Jeff, I want to hold off on that. I want to go into, because there's a bigger picture with this later on. Okay. So this is just Becca's stupid scrapbook. We're not going to give out the best content over her stupidity. And then, the funniest thing is that they had a quick, little shot of the in studio, and then they had Ben Higgins and Jason Mesnick, talking about these are the 2 guys who had the most similar situation as Ari. It's like, oh, what is your take so far? It's like, what's annoying? It's like this whole thing. It's like they're setting up people in studio, it's about to come. It's about to come. What's your thought at this second? It's like, it's this immediate reaction thing that really doesn't even matter because we haven't even seen the result. It's like,
and as if Ben and Jason are in any position to talk with any real authority, because they both completely whiffed their finales. Ben telling both girls that he loved both of them, which was the biggest dumb move of the, dumb thing that he could have done. And of course, Jason picked the wrong girl, but now they're there to offer their sage take on it. No, you guys were idiots in your time, and you don't get to Monday morning quarterback this. But of course, ABC lets them Monday morning quarterback it.
That's the thing. And it's like, and it's like, you're talking about this in real time and live. It's like, the damn result of this show. Ben Higgins and Jason Mesnick know exactly what happened. I hate this, like, Jeff, this whole pretending, like, ooh, I wonder what's going to happen. We're halfway through that finale. Well, who's he going to, like, what happens, you people. Like, you've heard about it. Like, stop pretending like that is like as if this is in real time, as if you're watching like a sporting event and you don't know who's going to win. Jeff, it's equivalent. It's like watching the replay of a Super Bowl. It's like, hey, we've seen the Super Bowl, but the world has it on DVR, so we're going to act and pretend that we don't know the score of the game and what happened. It's like, come on. It's like, don't make us feel stupid by pretending that you don't know what happened with Ari or anything. We need all these guests' advice and all this. Like, it's just pointless time filler crap,
Exactly. Or do it with the show for an hour, and then the second hour is now we're in the studio.
Right.
And everybody's here to talk about this interspersing, like these are sportscasters who are recapping the first half. It's silly, especially when they have the benefit of knowing exactly how the second half is going to show, and what's going to happen. And yet they talk like they have some brilliant insight into it when they've all been prepped on it and are speaking of it almost in past tense. It's ludicrous and kind of ruins it, I think, for the people at home, because everybody in that studio knew about it. Plus, we all read about it online. It had already been broken by that point. And it just becomes this continuing fakery, which doesn't really do any good to help the franchise's sort of noble attempts at showing and people trying to find love and connection.
Yeah, no, totally. And then after the break, we go right away to the finale. It's like, they got these quick dates out of the way, and it's like, oh, okay, the limos are coming, and it's like the moment of truth right away. It's kind of like got sprung upon us out of nowhere. Really, there's no setup. You briefly saw like Bachelor, the next Bachelor, the longest tenured aside from Chris Harrison, Neil Lane arrive, and it's like we literally saw him for like half a minute, and Ari picks a ring immediately as if he knows what he's doing, and then right away the limos are coming, and Lauren's the first one to come out, and it's like it's a dead giveaway because we all know when the first person comes out of the limo that they're done. She's the one, and it's like, here's the thing, she starts doing her like plea and proclamation of love for him. And it's like you knew right away from what we've established all season long from Ari, he looks down and looks away. It's like, Lauren, are you that much of like a nunchuck to not look up and look at him to see he's looking down and looking so disgruntled and so depressed? It's like, what do you think his answer is going to be? It's like, do you not see visual cues that this guy is just like about to, not only he should stop her and be like, just stop saying this because I'm like looking down, but he lets her finish, and it's like, and his face says 1,000 things. Like, everything by just looking at it.
Well, he's a terrible poker player, and it's the one saving grace that I will give him in this season, because I have very little to say about him that is good or positive. But I will say this: he cannot hide when he's going to send somebody home and they're on the outs, or he's grown tired of them or bored or has to show them the door. And Lauren can't even read the room. She thinks she knows him so much that she proclaims this great love. And it's like, you don't know him at all, because if you did, you'd look at him right now and know, even if it was just you only after seeing him for just 3 hours, you know he's not in a good place right now. He's not looking at you. He's looking away. He's looking down. And yet she goes on. But here's where I get mad at Ari. And this is where I compare him to previous seasons that you and I have both watched and studied. He could have played this so differently. Ari Fedakowski went to the guy that she wasn't going to pick the night before and said, look, I'm not going to put you through this bullshit. You don't have to come here in the limo thing for me to just disgrace you. I'm telling you right now, I'm going with the baseball player. I really like you. You're an awesome guy, but I respect you enough that I'm not going to do this for you. Now, there's maybe an incentive. Maybe there's something in the contract where you say, well, we'll give you an extra chunk of change, or we really would like you to do this. So there's some climax here. Okay, great. Fine. If you have to do that and you can't do it, what Allie did and, sort of let these people down gracefully, at least let them down gracefully when they're standing in front of you. For God's sake, man, stop her from giving that passionate plea. Say, right off the bat, take control of the situation. Make it as painless as possible for her. Give her dignity. I think part of the reason that Lauren was destroyed is he let her tell him all that. Like, oh, I'm just so taken by it. Maybe he's on the verge of crying. Maybe she thought he was tearing up or something. But she does this spiel, and then he's like, yeah, that doesn't mean anything to me. We're going to have to let you go. Like he's the boss in Office Space. I mean, he couldn't have been colder to her, and he lets her pour her heart out, just save the girl some time and her dignity and give her the graceful, take control of the situation. She comes out, Lauren, it's great to see you. You look lovely. I am really sorry that I have to tell you this, but I've decided not to choose you, and here's why, and save her. But see, this is his ego. He wants her to kiss his ass and put him on that pedestal. Yes, I'm King Ari. Even if I'm turning you down, I want to let everybody hear that I was still going to be the head guy and you're going to be subservient to me. It's insidious. It really is. It makes me can't. It was hard to watch. I can't stand the coldness of him to put her through that. He didn't have to.
Yeah, and then, he basically turns her down, but he tells her, like, his words were like, well, I've thought about it through all of last night, and I just can't give any more to you, like, I've given my all, and it's just like, I just can't find place in my heart. It's like, okay, what have you given? It's like,
and that's what a thing to say. That isn't even the truth. Like, that's the other thing, too, when he comes back to Lauren, which we'll get to, but I mean, based on what he said there, that there's no difficulty in the decision. There's nothing giving Lauren an inch that she could even take the foot out of by saying, well, he did tell me he loves me with his heart, and he fell in love with me, and he didn't plan on falling in love with two women. And at the end of the day, he thinks that there are practical reasons to be with Becca, or he could see a maturity or a level of evolving in her world or her worldview, or she's not as naive or student-like as Lauren, something, but instead he just goes, I can't find a place for you in my future, in my heart. Wow. I mean, he might as well have said, and bye-bye, because that's what it sounded like. It was one of the worst send-offs. This man has no control, no sense of words, no ability to know how to really play these situations. He's terrible at disasters. And of course, the big one coming up that we'll talk about in a few minutes is the real pinnacle of his stupidity and his social almost misanthropy and unevolved caveman-like meandering, but we'll get to that soon.
So then, obviously, Lauren's blindsided by him and rides off in a limo, shocked. She actually genuinely thought and looked like she really believed she was going to get picked. And there was genuine shock on her part to,
it was the first time I felt
be
sorry
sent
for
away.
her because, she didn't need to be embarrassed and put down like that. I mean, it was a humongous put down, and I felt for her, and I thought her tears were very well earned because there was nothing in Ari's response to her to give her any warmth and love and dignity and care.
No, totally. So then comes the presumptuous winner, Becca, who arrives second. Should be all good news for Becca. And you could see right away that, like, he was different. He was different with her. He was joyful. He turned that frown upside down, with Becca. He was looking at her. He was engaged. You could see that he was definitely paying more attention to her. He was not sulking and looking down like with Lauren. So when she gives her testimonial and her statement and proclaiming her love, he's actually taking it in and kind of, encouraging her and talking back to her and, sharing the sentiment with her. So doesn't take long till he gets down on his knee, proposes to her, and this girl is genuinely, like, happy and excited, and they both look excited, and she accepts and takes the rose and the ring. They're engaged. Becca's the one, and they're ready to make those babies and fill up that scrapbook on that page, because the couple found itself which adds to our point too. The first thing he said right when they show them celebrating and stuff, it's like he looks at her and he's like, so are you ready to make some babies? It's like, I've never heard a guy say that, Jeff. It's always, I'm not trying, it's not a sexist thing or anything, but it's like, that is a woman's thing 99 out of 100 times, to like want and push for, naturally so, you know? I've never seen a guy be like, oh, well, I can't wait to make babies. It's just
but not. Again, I'm having conjurings of The Handmaid's Tale. It's like he's treating these women as if they're breeders. They're there to serve King Ari. I need an heir. I need someone who can accept my seed and grow the family name. It's unbelievable. And again, for this man who needs to be in dominating position, of course, he lets her totally put him up on the pedestal first, rather than him putting her on the pedestal. This is the opportunity again. If he was really the man in this thing, if he was really the take charge guy, the dominant, the alpha male that he wants to be, he would turn it into, let me tell you why you're here. Throughout our journey, we have experienced a lot of time together, and I've come to know you and respect you for all this. It's his show. He should tell her what he thinks about her. Instead, basically, each of these women kind of proposed to him, and his ego needs that. He needs to be put on that pedestal. It's ridiculous. He could have taken control of this one too and said, I just sent away a girl who I really liked, and I fell in love with her, but I fell in love with you more. And here's why. Here's what I see with you, and here's why I'm choosing you. And make it about her and why you chose her. Because really that's what that moment is about. Instead, each time he let the woman put him up on the pedestal, and then he deigns to say, do I give you the thumbs up or the thumbs down, like he's the emperor? I hate this man. And you know what? Am I wrong? Does he not look like Bob Denver from Gilligan's Island? I think if you put a white cap on him and a red shirt, you'd have Gilligan.
Oh, no. I mean, he just wants children.
He's skinny and concave chest, those skinny, scrawny legs. He's got that big nose and that kind of doofusy, kind of half smirk, half grin face that Bob Denver had as Gilligan. I think he's our Gilligan Bachelor.
Okay, well, so this is it. Happy couple? No, it's not a happy couple, because this is where the promise of Chris Harrison coming back in studio to show us something that's never been done in reality TV history. Footage that's uncut, that will just keep on airing and not be stopped. And okay, so let's see it, Chris.
Oh, so my God.
We get
the most cringeworthy half hour of television in some time. I mean, I don't know if I've been cringing as much during 30 minutes as I was maybe since the Bronco chase. It's like, oh, or maybe, Trump's acceptance speech of the RNC is like, oh. But I mean, it was so painful to watch, even worse than I thought. It
doesn't get it. It starts out initially with them, just footage of them being happy, going on a
cell phone together, footage,
cooking together, and
oh, look, here we are.
Love. So it's like this happened. Obviously, the events of this uncut footage happened weeks after they were together, and they seemed like they were off to a good start from what this, iPhone footage that we see of them. It's kind of like the Blair Witch Project, just Ari.
He's waiting to send Becca into the corner.
Yeah. And it's like,
because of course he's filming all this great footage, like, oh, we're so happy, and yet behind the scenes he's secretly calling Lauren and letting her know that he wants to get back together with her. I mean, that's awful right there.
Exactly. So then we learn that he's calling Lauren and he's thinking about her, that she didn't go off his mind. And, he actually starts saying things like, well, I'm ready to call off the engagement and risk it all for her, and just so she could talk to me. It's like, oh, damn, man, you are going to such levels to just get some girl to talk to you. Meanwhile, like, Becca arrives at this like couples retreat that they were supposed to have. in LA.
The ugliest, vacation spot ever. Nothing's on the walls. It's all hallways that look like something out of the movie Repulsion. I mean, I'm surprised hands weren't coming out and grabbing at her like they did Catherine Deneuve in that film. It is truly one of the most undeveloped, ugly kinds of settings. I mean, maybe they wanted to be stark and mean, but it looked like anything but a place where a romantic couple would go. Yeah, no, it just looks very... And she's not even unpacked. She's got like her toiletries out, so he couldn't wait. Like, is she there? Oh, she hasn't unpacked yet? Well, I better get her. Hey, honey, don't unpack yet because I'm sending you home. Yeah, no, it was just one of those things where, it's just she's so unaware of she's getting there to this, like, bogus couples weekend, and she's all excited, showing off her huge ring. And well, Ari's got a huge surprise for her nonetheless. So there we go. So Jim, let me ask you this before we get into what he says to her. Did you not also think that there was an ugliness to this that, again, didn't need to be quite as damaging and horrific as it was, by them doing no editing on it, to the point where we saw the crew coming in and still setting up while he's starting to dump her? I mean, you see a couple like B camera guys and the secondary sound guys are like, oh shit, I guess this is it. We got to get in here. They knew this was coming, but they're all filing in all this stuff. As he's sitting down, he can't even wait until they're set up and there's no distractions. He starts to, I've been talking to Lauren and I've been unhappy, and we're still seeing crew getting set. It's ridiculous. It was so crass. No. If I was Becca, I would have screamed bloody murder at the producers as well as Ari. So, yeah, I mean, exactly. They're setting it up. All the camera crew's there. And then, we go back. We have these cutaways to Chris Harrison telling the audience, it's like, oh, this is going to be the most emotional scene ever, and all that stuff. So here comes Ari walking in already, sheepishly. Two cameras going. Mm-hmm. Split screen. The first thing he comments on is literally like, he's like, "Oh, the size of the ring." I know. Don't love it too much because we're sending it back to Neil Lane really soon. Exactly. We're just like, oh, that ring is so huge. It's like, oh, we're about to get taken away from you. I mean, what an idiot. He can't even, he's had weeks to think about this, and that's how ill-equipped he is and how stupid he is on choosing his words, that he goes like, oh, that's such a big ring. Yeah, maybe if you're going to break off an engagement, the first thing you shouldn't do is draw attention to the actual symbol of that engagement, you idiot. And it's like, and then the next thing is like, I knew, like, honestly, here it is on her too, her Lauren moment. He starts saying, he's like, well, every time we hang out, when we do this and hanging out is like the key word that he's using. You don't hang out with a fiance, okay? It's like time we spend together or moments we've shared, not like hanging out. I'm going to go hang out with like someone I don't even care about, It's it sounds like something you maybe assigned to friends in junior high. Hey, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, probably hang out with Skeezer and Tony. What? Yeah. It's just like so casual. It's like, hey, we're just gonna go hang out. It's like as if you're just like going on an online date or something. Not even. You kind of refer to a date. But it's like, just hanging out. And then he starts telling her, he's like, well, I don't want to be half in. And, I have to think about Lauren. And then she confirms that she knows that he's like reaching out to her. And he's like, well, and then right away she's like, are you still thinking about it? And it's like, oh my God. So this girl's had to suffer through this shit already. Happy Christmas. Immediately he's like, well, I want to take a risk with her and see her. And it's just like, wait, what? And it's like, and then, he's like, well, I don't want to do this after the final rose. I'd rather do it now. It's like, oh, how noble of you, Yeah, he acts like he's being noble, and yet he has no good words for her. He never apologizes. I think it was 40 minutes of this pain that we were watching before he said, I'm sorry. He didn't start off by saying, go and buy a goddamn book on ending a relationship. There's books out there. There's hundreds of them. They have whole sections of Barnes and Noble about relationships. And he could start off by saying something, I really care about you. I think you're wonderful. I love you, and I will always care about you. However, as you know, I've been a little compromised, and I keep thinking about her, and I'm just not sure that you and I should be engaged if I'm having those kinds of qualms. I'm very sorry about that. There, in 3 sentences, I've said everything that was honest, that would have let her down gentle, and would have been the truth, and dignified. He said none of those things. Well, we've been hanging out, which belittles the relationship so far. No, you haven't been hanging out. She is your betrothed. You are engaged to her. She is going to be your bride. So you haven't just been hanging out. You're engaged. You actually proposed marriage, you asshole. 2, I've been calling her and I really want to give that a chance. You have to address the fact that you're not giving this relationship a chance first. Strike 2. And then strike 3 is he didn't say he was sorry ever in that first volley. Get out. And then he doesn't even have the grace or brains or sense of reading the room to do that. He goes, he comes back. He goes, he comes back. I just want to make sure you're okay. I wanted her to scream and say, get out! Move, get out of here, you son of a bitch, or something. And he's moping around like, what is he expecting? She's going to say, oh, it's okay. I understand. You go and have my blessing. Go and love the other woman. Treat our engagement like it's nothing, like it's just hanging out. It's almost like he wants her to give him the permission so he doesn't have to feel so terrible. But he's so insensitive to her that he just comes off like a complete asshole.
Exactly. So here we go with play-by-play. I call this portion of play-by-play because there's a lot going on. So we'll stop at certain points and then comment on it. So the first play-by-play starts, Becca gets this information, just obviously reacts, doesn't know how to react. She retreats to the bathroom. Ari is like lurking behind the bathroom door, which was absolutely like, what are you doing?
Because that always works, doesn't it? Right. When they're locked in the bathroom crying and angry and you just salting the wound outside. Can we talk? Can I say something? No, I think you've said enough, actually. I don't know what else you could possibly say at this moment other than I'm going to hang myself in the corner so you don't have to ever look at me again because I'm such a shameful asshat.
So then he finally asks for permission if she wants him to stay. It's like, yes, she does. It's like, of course, she's like, no. She actually says, no, I don't.
Let's hang out. Keep hanging around. We'll pet some llamas together.
And then he walks out.
Help me unpack. Can you put my toiletries in the shower? Thank you. That would really help me out. I'm going to manage my sock drawer.
He walks out. He stands outside the door of the building. And the best shot of it, I've documented this shot. I love documenting these little shots.
Oh, my God.
He's looking down on his fingers. Like, he's outside the door, and he's just literally looking down at his fingernails. And it's like, I'm thinking at this point, I completely forgot about this fight that they had. I'm thinking, like, does this, like, get this man a clipper? You have all these production people there. It's like he needs his nails cut, apparently. He just realized it. He's going to go see Lauren. Get this man a damn clipper. It's like he needs to trim his fingernails before he sees Lauren because that's more important right now at this moment.
And I keep thinking to myself that he must think that somehow this makes him seem like the sensitive ogre. He's been the villain now. He's done this terrible thing to her, but at least he's a good guy because he's standing around listening to her suffering. So he's not easily walking away from it. He's kind of sharing in her pain.
That's
and
right.
It looks like he's just an insensitive boob.
So then the cameras go black. He goes back into the house. I don't know if he cut his nails or not. This is not explained to us. I'm guessing it's freshly trimmed nails. So he heads straight, and this is one of my favorite parts of this whole thing. He heads straight for the bedroom. He looks like he's looking for his lost wallet. Like he's just bouncing around this house from like one hallway to another, from one room to another. I don't know if he's looking for her, if like he's genuinely looking for these nail clippers or like a wallet. Like he looks to me like this is a man that's lost something, not a woman, like an object that he's looking to find it. And he's just wandering all around. And it's like, I'm thinking like, okay, why can't one damn producer help him find what he's looking for or navigate through this maze of a house? Because he doesn't know where he's going. And then he locates his Ari spider senses and finds hears the crying sounds coming out of the bathroom that he left her at.
I know it's just ridiculous. He won't leave. He's like the thing that wouldn't leave. He's like a bad party guest. It's after midnight. We have work tomorrow. The chips and dip are all gone. Can you please go? No, let's listen to some more records. What else? What other DVDs do you have? Do you have any Aerosmith? He's a complete schlemiel. He mopes around. He has nothing good to say. He doesn't give her anything that helps her. I mean, even if, and he's like, well, I'm going to be the good guy, the sensitive guy, and ask her what she's feeling. And does she want to say anything? Yeah, she probably wants to say 100 things. And she doesn't want to say them to you right now. Get out. She needs her space.
Yeah. It's lingering. It's the party goer that doesn't go away, God. And then it's like, listen, being the gentleman bachelor that he is, he asks her if she's doing okay, and here's like a play-by-play.
How dumb is that? Gee, yeah, she's really doing okay. She's really great right now. Peachy, actually.
I'm going to go off some of the quotes. So it's like, she responds like, are you doing okay? And she responds like, what are you still doing here? Legitimately. And he's like, and it's like, okay, Becca, maybe he changed his mind. And then she says like, just go. And it's like, he won't go. And then Becca comes out of the bathroom. And I'll tell you one thing. Becca was dressed for the occasion. Like, she had some flattering jeans on. I mean, fashionable, like a cute blue top. I mean, this girl had
no ugly crying for her. No ugly crying for her either. She had a very sort of soft, graceful, almost mewing kind of cry that looked pretty dignified. They still and she actually she walked out of the bathroom with some Kleenex. Finally, somebody handed some Kleenex to one of these people crying.
Yeah, I mean, she looked hot. I'll say that. So then Ari makes the best decision of the night. He finally plants himself on the empty couch. He decides to sit down instead of walking aimlessly and meandering around this place he doesn't even know where he's going. And then Becca finally sits down next to him, and she says that she has nothing to say. And then, she asks him what she did wrong. And it's like, Becca, there's only one answer to this. Are you blonde? No. Are you quiet as a mouse? No. Are you a driver's wife? No. Well, that's your answer. This is what you've done wrong. You are not a blonde, quiet mouse that's a driver's wife that puts the man on a pedestal. That is your problem.
Why is she doing all the work? She did all the work at the final rose, telling him what she's feeling, as opposed to Ari just saying, look, this was my decision. This is my journey. I made this decision. I just sent this girl home who I also loved and cared about, but here's why I picked you. He should have given her more of an explanation so she wouldn't have to ask those questions. But again, it's all about the subservience. She has to ask him, what did I do wrong? It's not about, hey, asshole, why are you such a goof who can't make up his mind? And why did you propose to me if you didn't feel that way? Instead, he just sits there and lets it all seem like she's done something wrong by not saying anything, by being so utterly inert and completely a caveman who doesn't know how to give her one sense of counsel. And then, of course, he does the cliche bullshit of trying to touch her. And she kind of snaps, don't touch me. I mean, that's 101 right there. You are not going to get any points after dumping a girl by giving her, well, can we at least hug and say goodbye? Or can I at least soothe your shoulder? Or maybe one last peck on the cheek or something for good time's sake. No, don't touch the woman. She is no longer receptive to any kind of physical contact. So he doesn't even get that.
Well, he takes his hand away from her like as if he touched her like a oven that's on fire.
Well, he did in a way, didn't he? I mean, at that point, she was pretty mad.
And then it's like this girl is sobbing and crying. And I'm thinking, once again, the production is just absolutely laying an egg. They're not even giving her, like, this girl's hyperventilating. Give her, like, an oxygen mask or something.
You know something? This is where Chris Harrison should come in. Because it is a TV show. And he goes, hey, I'm over here, watch this, and shit, Ari, don't you have anything to say to her? I mean, if he's going to play psychotherapist bullshit during the the studio stuff, why doesn't he come forward here and act like kind of the pseudo therapist there and say, hey, do you think you really handle this right? Do you think she really wants to see you right now? Is this the best play for you to just linger? Why don't you go, Ari? I think you've done enough damage, and let her Let her be in her pain because you've caused it and she ain't getting out of it anytime soon. I mean, I wish there was that Chris Harrison who would show up as the sort of moral conscience, the Greek chorus, if you will, or the Dr. Phil who could sort of let Ari know how stupid this whole thing looks to anybody with two eyes and a sensibility.
Completely. And then, so just like he then, I love how Ari asks, like, can I just get 2 seconds with you? So I'm like, 1, 2, time's up, Ari.
I mean, and that, like, really, like, I'll be there out just a sec.
Yeah.
Those are the worst, most dumb words because it never takes just a sec to get your hair done or, put your shoes on before you need to get out of the house. Exactly. Or give me 2 more seconds to explain how oh, that's right, a complete shit. I mean, he's done enough talking.
And it's like, and then she says how, her future was ripped away, and just like,
and she didn't have to say any of that either, which was also kind of bogus because it's like, really? I guess so. Thank you for saying what was already now known by everyone watching.
Well, yeah, then she was just like, I can't imagine my life without you, and it's
what
like.
What she should have said is, you're a complete bullshitter because you told me a month and a half ago that I was the one that you wanted. What hell? Why didn't you know your heart then? I mean, this is the thing is, how can you trust this man when he tells Lauren that, well, my heart really wanted you? Really? I would argue that your heart doesn't know what the hell it wants. You got down on one knee and proposed to the wrong girl. But now you know what you want. Really, you went through the whole 6 months of this journey from beginning of, the first night to the 2 months off between the show's end and the studio audience thing and everything else. And it takes, and only then does he know what he really, really wants. But we're supposed to believe him then. It's malarkey.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. It just like...
See, I think he's worse than Juan Pablo because Juan Pablo was a selfish, macho asshole. Yes, true. But he never proposed to the girl at the end. He sent Claire home and he didn't propose to the girl because he didn't feel it. He didn't feel like, oh, I'm going to make you my wife. It's like, no, I really like you and care about you. Let's date. At least that's honest. Ari got down on a knee and proposed to Becca, and then he says, almost from the beginning, I realized I made the wrong decision. Then don't get down on your knee. How can we trust you? What do you know of your own heart? And then he says, well, if my biggest fear throughout the show was that I'll make the wrong decision, then you're not ready to be the Bachelor because you should know as you're going through this what you're feeling and who you're responding to. If you don't know and you fear that you can't make the right decision, then my guess would be that you can make the right decision because you actually aren't in a place to know yourself enough to know that that wouldn't be a question.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so then, she also says, she's like, oh, you finally saw me cry. It's like, oh, wow.
And then now that's passive aggressive right there. It's like, okay, she's gotten over him pretty fast. Like, and you want to see me cry? Well, look, asshole, here I am crying.
Yeah.
That's like the bad bitter girl kind of statement. The only thing that was kind of a flaw in her, otherwise pretty good handling of this.
And then she just finally says, just go, please go. And then apparently that was the cue for Ari to like slide off the couch and stare at her, but not leave the couch.
Oh my God, he just can't leave.
He just couldn't.
We'll give you a dime for every second you stay, Ari.
And then
he 1,000, 2,000
to say, okay, I'm going to go. But he does, like he's still staring. And then after a slew of like teases and mild attempts, he gets up and walks out finally. And then Becca rips off her mic. And then... like, I'm thinking at this point, Jeff, all I need to do is just, like, please, Bachelor production, who you failed horribly at this, just, like, cue up Montel Jordan, and it's like, this is how we do it. I want that song in the background. This is how we do it. As Ari walks off.
It's so painful.
So that it was. And then, and this was stupid, too. Then we go back to Harrison in the studio, and Becca's there. Like, she's there live. And it's just like,
Well, see, now this is Chris Harrison in the show-saving face. Because they put her through this horrible, horrible thing. And they think, well, if we have her here, then she's kind of accepted. We don't look hideous for showing this in all this raw, unedited form that she's right away there to sort of absolve us of this horrible sort of ratings grab and intimate awfulness that we showed unedited for 45 minutes.
But here's the thing too. It's dumb. Dumb in the fact that, like, here she is, and they have literally 5 minutes before the end of the show, and they're bringing her out live. It's like, you're going to get nothing from her. It's all just a shameless tease for a cliffhanger to come back the next night. It's like, at this point, just wrap it up and be like, hey, we're going to have Becca live and Ari live tomorrow night, and to stay tuned. But no, you got to get that tease. You got to bring her out for 5 minutes and then tell her that she's going to come back tomorrow night to do it over again. It's like, oh my God, like, why are you doing this for like 5
and then they're bringing everybody back for a second night. It's like they have to send everybody home and then bring them all back again for a second night. It's just dragging it out forever. Oh my goodness.
So my takeaways from this finale was a few things that came to mind. It's like, first of all, this didn't have to be 3 hours long. Could have been easily cut to 2.
Yeah.
Easily. This was pointlessly a 3-hour episode. Another thing is that, obviously I feel that there's the shocking, that was the talk about how shocking was. This is the ground, but this wasn't that shocking, Jeff. Jason Mesnick pretty much did the same thing. He just did it after the final rose and not on the finale. It's like,
what's shocking about it is kind of that ABC was complicit in it. They knew it all. They were filmed up. They knew this as they were going into Becca, setting her up to be embarrassed in this huge way as part of their show. At least when Mesnick did it, it was all done behind the scenes, by and large, and it only happened quickly on the After the Rose. But this was all planning and traveling and airfare and crew calls and everything else. And I mean, what a terrible thing to tell Becca. We've all known this, a crew of 100 people and producers and executives at ABC, and everybody else knows this coming. You're the one person who didn't. But now we're going to film all this, and we're going to show it all raw and live and split screen and make the most out of it. And you're the last person to know, and yet you're the center of the story. But every crew member knows about it. In fact, they're all schlepping in here, extra crew, because we want to get that second camera set up so we can have it going simultaneous with you. And we're not going to give you the sense, of that this is happening, or even get it all set up before Ari starts coming in and dumping you. It's just terrible. But she's sitting there, and see, that's ABC saving face too. Not only setting up the cliffhanger, as you just mentioned, Jim, that's ABC saving face, because they knew they were going to get a ton of trolling and ripping to shreds
totally
on social media for doing that, for 45 minutes of this painful awfulness that everybody knew about except the girl who was being dumped. So the least they could do is we have to have her here to show that, well, she's still accepting of it. She hasn't hated all of us. She might despise Ari right now, but she's still with ABC.
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't mind it, actually. They signed up for this, so that's what you get it. So here's the live next after the final rose. The next night, the big live show that we were promised to get all the answers for. So then we basically start off the same thing as it left off. And Chris Harrison just starts off, the first word, it's like, well, I know, I'm sure that you were waiting for the show because, America couldn't sleep after the events that happened last night. I know I couldn't. It's like, Chris Harrison, I slept really well. Thank you very much. It's like, my goodness, the pretentiousness and the nonsense of just like, oh, I'm sure you couldn't sleep all night after what you saw. No, that wasn't groundbreaking in some way. It didn't impact me personally.
He's actually behind the 8 ball, as is ABC on this. This show now has its own life, for better or for worse, and maybe they benefit greatly from it in the big picture. No news, bad news is good news in the world of publicity, but they were getting trolled and ripped to shreds and hated. And so they had to do a little bit of face saving themselves on there. But every time they try to face save, it's funny how they still get sort of caught with their underwear down, because, the fact is this stuff is being live tweeted, and people are ripping at a new one, and they're coming all down on Chris Harrison and everybody else, and they have to face that. They kind of have to accept that. And even when they had the girls come on, the other Bachelor contestants, they were kind of ripping the show and ripping Chris a little bit too. And guess what, folks? That's what it is now. You don't get to sort of control the entire narrative, and they still act like they think they have it all controlled. I mean, them sending, well, he's all getting butterflies in his stomach when he's sent off to see Lauren. She knew he was coming. They had the cameras all set up. Don't act like we don't know that this is a show, that this has all been set up. It's so silly. But anyway, we have to have him talk to Jason Mesnick, I think, before he went and saw Lauren, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, then the first we see is like continuous footage. So the footage was that we saw, oh, look, I have like background noise starting up. American Idol is telling me to watch.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's it's bad news then. When American Idol's turning on its own on your computer.
They want you to move on to the next reality show.
Yeah. But then we see like footage of like Becca like on her way home, and her like wearing a baseball cap in an airport, looking all depressed, and hiding her face. The shame walk as if she's like hiding from paparazzi or something. It's like, oh my goodness, stop over dramatizing her like return to Minnesota to her like freezing tundra.
Hiding her face so no one will recognize her at the airport after her shame.
Yeah, so it's like, so then then we see Ari and what he's doing, and he's hanging out, quote unquote, with Jason Mesnick, and they're talking about like the fiasco and what, like Ari heeds advice from him and what he should do, and and then Jason kind of gives him a thumbs up. So Ari heads to Virginia to get back Lauren and arrives at her house and has a panic attack right in front of the door. Jeff, he can't handle the pressure that's about to happen.
I know, which I question if that's truly the truth, because the fact of the matter is they had the cameras all set up. Lauren had to know he was coming. It's like she had to be there. So, and he had talked to her, as we found out from the show, but I think it was all fake to make us feel some sympathy for him after being such a atrocious shit the night before.
Yeah. So then we have basically, they're doing a back and forth between Becca and Ari, and a producer asks if, she still loves Ari, and she says yes, and she erupts with tears, and then she's looking through like her laptop and looking at pictures and videos of them together, and then we go back to Ari, who's like having a panic attack, and and Becca's torturing herself by watching these videos. It's like they're two, and then Becca's torturing herself, and then Ari goes up to the door, and Lauren, this is my favorite part, like it's just like this whole like contrast of like Becca like crying and looking over stuff, and he's ready to like go up to Lauren's door. It's crazy.
Ugh.
And then the best part is when he knocks on the door, he rings the doorbell of Lauren's family home, I'm guessing. She runs out like a damn torpedo, Jeff. It's like she knocks the door almost out and jumps into his arms. And I'm thinking like, what the hell? What if this was like the mailman or like the UPS delivery person or something, and she just runs out? Does she just run out at everyone like a dog trying to attack or something, and jumps into their arms? It's like, I didn't even see. She was like Flash. She like jumped and like right into his arms. It was unbelievable. It's like, Lauren, you're that friendly? Like you just hug everyone and run up to them? Or like, how planted was this?
I mean, that's where I'm saying. It's just like Ari's, what's he worried about? He knows she's going to accept it. They've already talked and everything else, and that comes out. So again, he just looks disingenuous.
Mm-hmm. And here come I know there's a lot of favorite parts of mine, but Lauren starts talking about her struggles, obviously post elimination, how she didn't understand, and I think here's the thing that I'm taking out of this. I think a lot of it was jealousy. I don't think Lauren and Becca ever liked each other. I think it's pretty evident.
Yeah, that probably is.
And because they were always talking about each other, like, well, what is he like? Especially Becca. I think Becca had disdain for Lauren, more so than Lauren. I think Lauren's too unaware, maybe, to like dislike her that much. She's just kind of like concerned about her own self. But Becca had this whole thing about like, what does he see in her? Like throughout when she met the family and they were talking about her, to Ari, she's as if she was in this competition. Literally, I know they were, but like this, like, oh, I need to be. How can he like Lauren? Like this, like jealous girl type of syndrome, you know?
Yep.
It's like this insecure kind of thing. I felt like Becca had a lot of insecurity, constantly getting afraid of like whenever Lauren's name is mentioned, she'd like almost freak out or flip out or constantly like, well, what does he see in Lauren? Like, how can he like her? Like, it's like it was this a lot of exposed insecurity by Becca, and so here's Lauren talking to Ari, and he kind of walks around things and basically says that he was scared away by her doubt, which I could see happening because she clearly had doubt about him. And then he kind of admitted that he picked Becca because she felt safe, And then Lauren follows up by asking if, he's over Becca. And this is my favorite part. He had the biggest grin ever, and he says, "Oh, yes, I'm over her 1,000%." The visuals on that, Jeff, the man's grin. I captured a screenshot of this again. Like the 1,000%. I believed him 1,000% when he said that. I was convinced that he was over her. And then he says right away that he proclaims his love for Lauren and he wants her back, and she accepts immediately. And that was it. That was the easiest like comeback and take back of all time.
I know, it was really shameful. And the fact that, again, he's not sensitive about it. Like, he's looking just for the fairy tale ending. Well, you don't get the fairy tale ending here. You don't. You do not get the fairy tale ending. The best you can do is say, my God, I made a terribly dumb blunder. I kind of wrecked this one girl's life, but I do feel this way about you, and I'd like you back if you'll have me. Humble pie it. Speak a little calmly about it. Don't say I'm over the other girl 1,000%. First of all, I hate that because there's no 1,000%, and I've always hated that bullshit athletic sort of 110%. No, it's 100%. Let's not call 1,000% any worse. It's to me that's a sign of immaturity also to say that. No, you're not going to ever be over her 1,000% because the fact is you handled this so terribly. It's a shameful blot on your story, your trajectory, your data. It's part of your a wart now on your resume. You have to say, well, how many times have you been engaged? Well, twice. You don't get to say, well, that one didn't count. No, motherfucker, you actually did it. So you have to take some responsibility for it. So when he says, oh, I'm over 1,000% again, to me, this season has always been belying the narrative that Ari is mature and ready to settle down, and he's sown his wild oats, and he's ready to be a serious person. He is not. He doesn't trust his own heart. A man who's 36 and is looking and knows what he wants would trust his heart. He wouldn't be afraid that the worst mistake he's going to make is picking the wrong girl. Also, he wouldn't pick the wrong girl, and he would be a little more humble about having to let the girl go and letting her down, and he sure as hell wouldn't be doing somersaults in the street. Even if he's like made the right decision, I realize now that I'm with the person that I truly love and truly want to be with, it will always be tempered by the fact that he handled it so terribly, and he still doesn't get that. And he lies and lies to himself by saying, I'm over her 1,000%. Mm-hmm. Shame on you. You'll go to your grave and you should not be over her 90% because you fucked it up. You proposed to her. You ruined her life. You made the wrong decision. You weren't cool about it. And you made about 10 huge errors that made America and your once former fiance despise you. You're not clean and free 1,000%. Oh, I have never loathed a Bachelor contestant. There you go. You get your
1,000% reinforcement.
He gets 1,000% of my hatred. 1,000% of my hatred. I've got enough hatred for 10 people. 10 people at 100%.
I believed him 1,000%. He looked joyful and excited. And then after the break, we get the band of Bachelor women live in studio. So that was kind of it. That was the footage we get to see, and that was the end of all the Bachelor footage. From then on, Yeah, everything from then on was live in studio, so that's kind of it all ended up on that note, on his 1,000% and his excitement. So then we have the band of Bachelor women in studio. So we have CN, Tia, Becca, M, Kendall, and the new spokesperson of the group, Caroline. So they're all there. And they're ready to talk to Chris Harrison about what had they just seen. So Becca takes away the thunder from the spokesperson of the group, Caroline, and right away she calls Ari a manipulative person. That's her right away, takes a shot out of the gate. Then Harrison kind of asks them whether they should have aired the breakup, right? The question we've been talking about. Right. And the women seem kind of split on it. Becca didn't think they should have. But then, obviously they did it for the buzz and all the talk. And then Tia kind of reveals that she was with Lauren on New Year's Eve when Ari reached out to Lauren on social media. And it's like, don't you love it, Jeff, that these days, especially in the Bachelor world, I don't know if this happens anywhere else, but on a Bachelor, it's this whole sliding into DMs, which I hate that phrase, sliding into DMs. And it's like, do these people have like phones and phone numbers to like call or text even? Are we beyond texting now, just sliding into DMs? It's like how wussy-like that is. And this is not on Ari. This is on everyone who's on this Bachelor show who reaches out to these women or vice versa, and they slide into each other's DMs. And that's how they bond these like relationships come out of these love affairs come out of this sliding into DMs,
Well, it is all very incestuous, and they keep talking, and they're not supposed to be in contact, or they're supposed to keep it under wraps, but of course they don't, and everybody knew what was coming here. But I thought what I liked about this segment was twofold.
And Becca's not done, though. So it's like Becca, she keeps on firing at Ari, though, and she even says something like, I hope that Lauren gets out of this whole situation with him. And, like, you know what? And I'll get your comment right now, but I have a comment on all this section. So what's your take?
What I liked about it is I agree with her. And I don't say that just because I liked her. I think that Ari doesn't know his heart. He, as I just said in the last segment, I think that the fact that, we're heading towards a proposal that they know is coming, is indicative of how silly he is, because he's still trying to squeeze it into this fairy tale narrative, which he no longer gets. I'm sorry, Ari. You don't get that anymore. You don't get to just put Becca in a little box and compartmentalize, nor does ABC. And what I liked about this is that a lot of these women were still not happy about this. They were not only, empathizing and sympathizing with Becca, the dejected Becca, but they were kind of calling ABC on some of their shit. And here's the funny thing about it is I think Chris Harrison was too. Chris Harrison was not sitting there defending the show or defending Ari too well. In fact, I think if you read between the lines, I'm not sure that Chris Harrison likes her too much, but I thought by him letting them say all this without kind of reining it in, like, oh, you're kind of knocking the show, oh, you're kind of knocking Ari, he was indicating that he was clearly with the very heavy critiquing and kind of turning against Ari that they had. I mean, Chris Harrison, when he was introducing them, he even talked about how much the negativity was, as they all saw just in the overnight. So I thought it was actually the most honest, in some ways compelling, non-traditional fairy tale bullshit of the whole season, because they let these women say it and they were not being all, gooey and silly and sort of subscribing to the fairy tale bullshit.
Okay. I get that.
You disagree.
Here's my take. Shut up, Becca.
No.
Yes.
No. Yes. What? They're all supposed to be in line? Come on.
He's such a manipulative person. He's
an idiot. And he doesn't know what he wants, and he's sitting there hanging around Becca. He's manipulating there. He can't leave her because he wants to make sure that she's somehow letting him know that he's okay, and he's still controlling her. He's still manipulating her. It still has to be about her feeding into his ego so he can skulk away without shame. Okay, I think that is manipulative.
True. But here's the thing, Jeff. Who the hell is Becca M to make these proclamations? For suddenly she's the leader of the pack now, to shooting fires, shooting bullets at Ari, like, oh, he's manipulative. Oh, I hope Lauren leaves him. It's like, what the hell do you know about him and Lauren, what they've been through? It's like, didn't we just see you a few weeks ago crying and being sobbing over, like, granted, we do know she didn't care that much about him. You know what I mean? That she didn't, but, you know, that she didn't.
In defense of Beckham, I don't think she was the only one sort of giving that vibe. Certainly Caroline was, and some of the others there. She was a little bit more blunt about it.
Who are you, Caroline? You barely were on a show.
Well, but here's the thing, though, Jim. I'm going to defend them because I'm going to defend them because you know what, my friend, they're in the same situation that you are. You and I are. They've watched the show. So, yeah, Beckham was crying on the show in real time when she had no access to the internet, family or friends. She could only be thinking about Ara the entire time. They made out like bandits constantly. There was the sexual chemistry that they had that no other contestant had. He was liking her all the time. When she told him his age, suddenly he dumped her. And then he sends her home because he listens to Tia, who thinks, well, I don't think she's ready to be married. What does she know? What does Tia know about anything? Becca now, like Caroline, like you and me, has watched the show. And Ari's a shit. He doesn't have the maturity. Even his dad said, you need your ass kicked. He's not a good Bachelor candidate. He wasn't good during this. He was weak. He looked tired. He couldn't make decisions. He was uninteresting. The best thing you could say was, wow, I love that. Or that's amazing. Those cliche words. And then he whiffs it. He whiffs the finale. And then he whiffs how he lets Becca down. And then he says, oh, I'm over her 1,000%. You're not. Not the way you ended this. You're not. I think these women speak for you and me, my friend.
And then, suddenly he has all friends with Becca. First, she's throwing her under the bus, and now they've bonded, and they're all good for each other. Whatever. I'm going to just say BS to all that.
Well, I don't know. I think they're watching the show, and they're actually responding to, take their jealousy or their participation out of it. I think they're looking at it sort of as we are as fans who can see that he.
Jeff, I do think there's a lot of jealousy.
Well, sure, they didn't make the final, but at the same time, do you think Beckham wants to be with Ari? They asked her point blank, and she said no. She wouldn't have wanted to be with him.
I agree.
Seeing the way he acted, I'm glad she.
But don't tell me Tia didn't want to. Don't tell me Tia secretly didn't want to be in the finale and be, with him.
But she did. Let me ask you this, though, Jim. Do you think any of those 6 women sitting there on stage at that point would have wanted to be be his pick if he had acted like that? And would any of those 6 women have traded places with Lauren? I don't think so.
Tia would.
I don't think so.
Tia would. I don't think Becca would, or Kendall, who kind of checked out on her own, or Cian, who was just kind of let go. But I think Tia would.
Well, and she would have done it for the ambition of the show, not necessarily because she really felt that would be the right way to start a relationship.
She said she loved him. She did. She even said it after the fact that she loved him, even after the women fell off.
So did Becca, and then to be treated that way. I mean, I don't think Lauren's getting a prize getting Ari's sloppy seconds Ari after that. I mean, this is the man who's been sleeping with this woman for the better part of 2 months, telling her that he's going to marry her and they're going to have babies and all this. But the whole time he's having sex with her, he's thinking of Lauren. I don't think that's a compliment to Lauren.
Okay.
Because he made the wrong decision. I think those women were saying, this is not really a great ending, and calling him out on it the way you and I are.
So then we have Becca finally come up. Forget about
first fight.
Oh, well, no, we'll see. So here's Becca finally comes out again after last night, and she obviously talks kind of about the difficulty of watching back the breakup, and it would be for anyone. I mean, no one wants to see this, but that she does say she got kind of closure through it, which I can understand that too. So. She did find out about Ari reaching out to Lauren and, those conflicting feelings. But here's the thing. She said that he was upfront telling her about all of this, that he, had love for Lauren. And he told her right away after that picking her that he told Lauren that he loved her too. And, that having feelings for her and reaching out to her. So she basically confirms that Ari was up front with a lot of these things, and then
let me ask you this, Jim, and this is where, again, let me beat up on Ari for you here for a second. Do you think he would have gone? Do you think he would have dumped Becca? Do you think he would have dumped Becca and kept calling Lauren if Lauren wasn't receptive? Let me tell you something. No man breaks up with a woman just because he doesn't think she's right. He broke up with Becca knowing full well that Lauren was going to take him back. He knew that he had that in his pocket before he let Becca down. If he said, I don't think I love Becca enough, I might love Lauren, I think I should give Lauren a chance, he would not have made that move unless he knew that Lauren had already said on those phone calls, I want you back and will accept you back. If you drop her, I'll welcome you back with open arms, which is exactly what she did. She ran to that room, to the door, as you said. I don't think Ari gets any credit for being upfront about that. I think that's still pretty shitty because he didn't tell her that when he was breaking up.
Well, let's go off of
he acted like he wanted to give it a shot. It was already an ordained deal when he talked to Becca. He knew that Lauren accepted him.
We'll get to Ari in a second. I mean, it's just let's not make it all Ari here. Seriously, I know you want to get in your point, but let's just go through point by point. So she
painful, Jim.
Talks about that she got her closure. She watched it back. She didn't want to. And then here's the weird thing. So then Harrison tries to lighten the mood and basically tells her about these billboards that they put up in Minnesota and California for her.
Yes, 3 billboards outside Bachelor ABC. Right.
Yeah, and then it's like, this is the weird part. It's like there's a GoFundMe account that raised $6,000 in support of Becca. Now, you know what, Jeff? Silly. There's so many damn charities out there for people. I mean, this is not on Becca. I'm just blaming these.
No, that was dumb.
Fans. Like, you're raising $6,000. You see this GoFundMe account. You see it's at $6,000, and you're raising it for this woman for what? Like, what is she? And luckily for Becca that she has integrity and class to just say, like, this is ridiculous, acknowledge how ridiculous it is, and to donate it to charity, to stand up for cancer, because it's just absolutely shameful that someone would allow this account to go up and like keep on collecting money. I mean, a good thing came out of it, and it looked very well on her part to donate to charity. And of course, Harrison said that the show will match it, which they kind of had to kind of look presentable and decent, because she's doing a decent thing here. But it's just like, this is so ridiculous to have $6,000 to some account when there's so many worthy, important causes people donate to. It just shows how as a society and these Bachelor universe, Bachelor Nation, whatever the hell you want to call them, just so out of touch.
Yeah, I agree. And there's so much better things they could be giving their money to. She's going to be fine. I'm sure they were already negotiating with her in regards to being the next Bachelorette. But yeah, that looked stupid. And to even bring it up makes, unfortunately, there's ABC insulting their audience. Oh, you watch this and think it's all important. Look at how dumb you people are. You're giving money to this girl.
Totally. So then we finally get Ari out there. So he asks her if she wants to face him. Of course, she has no choice but to face him.
Right.
So Ari comes out. They kind of hug begrudgingly. But she had questions, So she asked him when he wanted to pursue Lauren. That was like the first thing.
Right.
And obviously, I think the answer was like after that phone call. That was pretty given. And he admits to that. And he said he wanted to do this on camera so everyone would see it. And, and he keeps on saying that he wanted his all to fall on him, not on her. He wants to take the blame for it. He admits to making mistakes. He admits that he should have told her sooner, and he said he was
also talked about the fact that he got sort of caught up in the sway of the TV show, which I'll give him credit there. That's an honest answer. It is a little bit when they're telling you this and they're only letting you see this, and you don't get sort of these outside perspectives and everything else. There's a great deal of pressure on it. I think every Bachelor thinks that they're going to be able to handle it, and they are thrown into such a weird world of sort of deprivation and one-track mindedness, and the lure of the money and the lure of the exotic locations. And I mean, Ari slept with 3 women, for God's sake. What man does that and then turns around 3 days later and gets down on a knee and proposes to somebody? But I'm test driving the cars of these other hot babes. I mean, this ABC makes this ridiculous thing that, frankly, would probably grind up and turn any decent filet mignon into hamburger, And Ari certainly got ground up by it, but he admitted that. And I thought that was one of the admirable parts about that after the final rose, is that he said, basically, I became victim of the show. And he did.
Yeah, he did. Absolutely. And, he said that. And I, he's coming up. He's taking the blame. He wants to blame. He makes it clear he doesn't want her taking the blame. He owns up to that. And then Harrison kind of interjects and, asks Becca where she stands now. It's like, and she's just kind of starts pitching that, I'm ready for next chapter, but I'm always going to have love for Ari, which is relatable and probably, true.
And Jim, was this the point where she said, well, now I have a story? Or did you say that later?
I think she said a little later, but that became a theme.
Yeah. And see, to me, that's where. Well, we'll get into that later. Because I think that's the ultimate discussion of this whole 2-hour episode. Because I have some thoughts on that too, which will maybe not be quite as sympathetic to Becca.
And then Ari kind of finally admits to regretting to proposing to her, and he talks about that pressure we just touched on about having to propose and. How unnatural it is. And we've said it for a long time, Jeff, you and I, that this is so damn unnatural. To have to force him to propose. And Ari's, like I said, he's throwing the show under the bus for rightful reasons because that's a concept that needs to change with this show. You can't keep on forcing it. If this situation won't change it or make him look bad, that this whole fake forced engagement, this whole Neil Lane contract they have that he needs to show up and show with a ring. Like Ari basically told him, this is bullshit. This should not be happening. Let us get some time together. Let us just date or commit to a relationship, not have to propose. And this is the end result when you're forcing someone, pushing them against the corner to propose.
Yep.
This exact situation, completely 100% right. And it needs to finally do something for the show to stop doing that. That does not need to be there. That does not bring in more viewers or audience members or create more buzz that having to engage. No one cares about if he gets engaged or not. They want these couples to at least stick together after a show.
Well, here's the other thing too, is I think that to me, and I was trying to think of what's analogous to this, and that is one of the better ones that I came up with, I think, tell me if you agree with this or not, is the $100,000 pyramid. I don't know if you've ever watched that game show, but it's called the $100,000 pyramid. Well, you don't get $100,000 when you go into the pyramid. You get $100,000 if you go into the pyramid the second time. The first time you go in there, you get $50,000. If you win both of the two
incentive.
But I mean, what happens on the show is in a half-hour show, if you win both rounds, if you win the first round and the second round, the second time you go into that winner circle, you can win the $100,000. If they want to do the same kind of idea here, they can. Have the Bachelor with the ring, have it as the logo, and the ideal if you could get there. But don't force it if you can't. Make it about Ari is here to find love. That's very different than saying Ari is here to find a wife. Because I'm sorry, but at this day and age, with everything we know about how shows are made, and we've seen this show 22 seasons now, it's borderline a satire, almost making fun of itself. I think it jumped the shark probably in the Juan Pablo season, or maybe when Brad Womack sent both women home a decade ago. This show has to be more self-conscious about it. My God, if social media hasn't taught them anything, is they can't get away with their lies and bullshit anymore. And all they have to do is make that simple change. The idea is we want to help the Bachelor contestant find love. Now, wink, wink, if you feel really strong enough about this person, but I think it's bogus when you're sleeping with 3 people less than a week beforehand, and then you're dragging 2 women into the finale. Do what Ali Fedotowsky did. You say, I don't want to marry you. I'm not going to put you through this. This is the person I want. But if they stood up and said, I fall in love with you, you're the woman I want to choose. It's a game show. It doesn't have to end. And the reason they should do it, if for no other reason, I mean, you could argue the practicality, the feasibility, everything else. Their track record is terrible. Less than 5% of their contestants have married. So all those engagements don't mean anything. And the audiences know it. And they can laugh at it. Maybe Chris Harrison gives just a slight wink in his eye. But if they change that one thing, like we are not demanding that you lead this to an engagement and get down on the knee, I think you'd have more people happy. Like, wow, he ended up with Lauren, that's his girlfriend, and now we come back and they're dating, and then you let them date right after that. Hopefully they're still together, but you get them now. You can go and actually have a full relationship. I don't know if that would be any less satisfactory. I really don't.
No, because I mean, we know it's a joke that they always break up right after. We always make it seem, and then you have like Rachel Lindsay, who doesn't help this point by breaking off and tossing Peter off the whole show basically by constantly, always push that engagement and that ring. And
right. Peter was all but saying to her, I really like you. If you picked me, I would be happy with that. I'd like to date you. I feel very strong about you. I'm not ready to accept accept Neil Lane's ring and get down on a knee and propose to you when I don't feel that I know you well enough for me to feel comfortable doing that. And Rachel Lindsay says, well, I need that. Otherwise, I got to send you home. Right. That's bullshit. And then she picks her second choice. And maybe she liked him a lot. I don't know. I don't think by evidence of her pleading with Peter for half an hour of the show to reconsider, but she would have picked the one that everybody in Bachelor Nation wanted her to pick, and the one that she was leaning towards the entire season, and who was clearly the number one position. But this pressure to marry is baloney.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. I'm glad Ari called it out. I'm glad he made note of it.
Yeah, I think he actually did a little bit to sort of save his reputation and face there a little bit by recognizing
completely.
Well, and the thing is, they're told not to talk about it in those terms, but even one of the reasons I like those 6 women is they addressed it. This is a game show, folks. Let's not kid ourselves. We can talk about love and all this. It's a game show. It's just like the $100,000 pyramid. And there's a winner and there's a contest, and it's just done in a different way of a game show. But it's like Survivor and some of those other shows that change the way we look at game shows. But to pretend that this is Cinderella is bullshit. And I think the world is laughing at them. They're almost to the point now where I don't think they can keep it going seriously after this many silliness. But then, of course, what does Ari do at the end? He falls right back into that narrative. He proposes to Lauren on television. Gets down on his knee again. Yeah. It's like,
Jeff, you always ruin stuff. You need to stop giving away, like when we go a trajectory.
Oh, this is painful. Let's get to it. We don't need to talk about what happens after that. Becca has nothing good to say to Ari and vice versa. Let's just get to it.
No, she says how she got robbed of her first engagement and proposal of all time.
Right.
That's a big deal to her that she doesn't get to do another proposal or engagement. Well, you can understand that if she took it seriously. That is a big deal.
And he did try to apologize to her there. I'll give him that much, but he should have done that when he blew her out of the water back in the 45 minutes where it took him to say he was sorry then.
Yeah, so I mean, he does apologize, and she does accept it, but he did look shooken up and nervous for sure. Like, this was a real moment. I thought this was even more real than anything we've seen. It was just like he was nervous, he was shooken up. She, kind of let him know that she got cheated of a moment, and and he apologized genuinely, I felt, and that was kind of an important scene there,
Well,
and
she came off good, and she set herself well for the audience to love her and accept her as what was coming with the announcement, because she said that she hopes he does treat Lauren well, and she wishes them well, and
right. So that was
she came off as a smart, mature person. And I have to say, when I was watching, thinking, you still made this wrong choice with Lauren. That's who you should have picked. Your dad was right. You needed your ass kicked. This woman just kicked it, and she just showed you how to be a class act too. And he just kind of sits there still like a mope on a rope. I give him credit. He did say he was sorry. He acknowledged that he got, pulled into the hurricane of the show and everything, but
yeah. So that, I thought it ended off in a well note.
But see, they can't leave well enough alone, because the next two things I think are pretty awful.
Well, Jason and Molly come up.
Oh, I don't even want to talk. Oh, those clowns. And
I do.
I do. Go ahead.
I do. And it's like, you know what? I think this is an important point. Jason and Molly come up, yes, and I will talk about this. So screw you, because Jason tells us.
Wow, your co-host is being told to fuck off. Thank you.
No, Jason tells us that all the talk about Ari, and that's been the whole thing set up all night. I think Harrison had an out for Ari from the get-go, and it's just like, the smartest thing of the night is being said by Mesnick, who says that, like, listen up, chill the fuck out, people. There's crimes being committed. There's so many things that are, and we're complaining about Ari. Like, that is our biggest problem, is Ari, when there's so much crap going on in the world. It's like we're so angered by Ari. It's like, shut the hell up. I think Jason Mesnick told people to, like, we talked about how this stupid Bachelor crowd, Bachelor Nation's full of idiots, and it's like, now it's like he kind of points it out by saying, like, you need to lighten the hell up, okay? Like, he made a decision, okay? He made a decision about a woman, and it's not like he committed a crime or, to do anything. He literally told them, to, like, chill the hell out. And I agree.
Well, social media overreacts to everything. I grant you. However, you can't have your cake and eat it too here, because Chris Harrison talks about this is the most dramatic finale ever, and they're setting this up as this hard to watch, and we've got this raw, unedited footage, and then Jason Mesnick says, hey, this isn't the most important thing in the world. Not according to The Bachelor the last 2 nights. They've treated like this is practically, Armageddon. So
completely,
they talk out of both sides of their mouth on the show too.
Jason Mesnick is talking to the actual crowd. He's not talking for the show. It's not Chris Harrison saying that. I think he's talking to, like, in general speaking, and not trying to hype or work alongside the show. I thought it was completely.
I think you're right about that, Jim, in the sense that the threats, if there were any death threats or the overly done trolling and, the bile that gets probably thrown at him. I mean, one of the things that Jason and Molly recommended was don't go on social media for a while, stay off the television and all that. Of course, they can't do that because they've got to go out and promote this relationship and people and everything else. But that's fair advice. And yet, if we're investing in a show and it gets kind of screwed up, and let's face it, I mean, Ari pulled it out of the fire at the very end, and perhaps he's happy and perhaps he feels confident enough, 1,000%, to get down on his knee and propose to Lauren, but he did that 3 months ago, and we believed it then. So I have a question believing it now, and I think that is worthy of derision. I think Molly and Jason are actually wrong about that. I think we should be slamming Ari for this, maybe not as egregiously as it's done in social media, but he's an idiot, and he played it terribly. He was a terrible bachelor. He was not in touch with his feelings. He didn't know how he felt. He waffled and wimped out and wussed out all the way through, including his breaking up of Becca. I feel no joy for Ari and Lauren.
We'll do this. We're gonna.
I tell you what. I'll make you a bet. I'll bet you $100 they're broken up within the year. How's that? Because I don't trust Ari at all. I don't think there's any belief in his relationship whatsoever.
But that's just picking on Ari instead of anyone on this show that always breaks up. You can't make that bet because everyone, even the greatest couples people love, break up.
But the whole narrative was he was mature. He was ready to settle down. He knew exactly what he wanted, and he didn't.
I'll tell you what. Hold all that off. I'm going to give you the form later on. No, we need to move on because you every time you try to find a way to bash him. So I'm going to give you the form in a bit after we recap this portion and get to the Bachelorette.
You hated Ari up until this last show. You were in the same ballpark that I was, hating him the whole time.
Well, I'm just saying, it's like, let's just get through this and we'll get let it all out. So then basically Harrison asks him why he did this, this like as if he committed a crime. And, Rory says that he did it for his fairy tale, right? That he's ultimately looking to be happy.
But why does it have to be a fairy tale? That's bullshit. A mature person of 36 doesn't expect a fairy tale in a relationship. Relationships take work. They take honesty.
Absolutely.
There's hard work and ugliness and trauma and seriousness and anger and frustration. There is no fairy tale. At 36 to still say he wants a fairy tale, especially when you're on TV with cameras and narrative that you have to, and you're cut off from the real world. I mean, to want that fantasy is bullshit. It is not maturity.
It's a bad choice of words. It's a bad choice of description.
He has to be responsible for his words. That's why I find him so egregious, because he still uses words like, well, I wanted my fantasy. Who gets their fantasy in the world?
No one.
Exactly.
And so that's not a true statement. So then they finally bring out Lauren. They wait a whole night to bring her out. So then it's like the same thing. Kind of Harrison asks her when she heard from Ari. It's like they're trying to go over the 20th time over these details that is really of nothing. It's like when was the date and exact time he reached out to you? Like, oh, shut up. Who cares? So it's like, okay, it was New Year's Eve, big deal. He reached out through Instagram. It's like, she just wanted Becca to be aware of that they're talking. Okay, well, she's clearly aware of it now after all this. So, but then the important stuff starts coming out of Lauren, and she's basically says that she's never been more in love. She continues, like, kind of, Harrison says, well, what do you like about him? And then she's like, she according to her, she loves how honest and brave and respectful he was to her, right? Which is probably all true, because he was probably honest, and he was, respectful to her, and I guess brave to her by coming and getting her, or coming back to her. So, Harrison then asks Lauren if she trusts Ari, and she kind of responds. I like to respond. She's like, well, if I didn't, I wouldn't be with him, which is kind of a no-brainer answer. It was one of the better answers Lauren's given on this show in general. I thought it was a stupid kind of thing that he asked. I mean, a question people would understand and want to hear, but I think there's only one or two answers she could have given, and then Ari kind of chimes in and says he, is worth his risk, and people don't understand the gravity of what he did, which I agree with, because we're not in that position. And then, of course, Harrison wants to keep on bringing up the haters here, and he wants Ari to address them, and Ari doesn't care about the haters. He's got his woman and he's in love, and that's pretty much it. And they take another commercial break, and Harrison wants to know what's next for the couple. And it's another stupid question, because it's one of these things where, like, they don't know what's next. I mean, no one's predicting the future. And apparently they're heading out of the country. They're taking Jason Mesnick's advice, and then she's going to move to Arizona with him. So that's their plan. And then Harrison insistently, again, wants to know, like, how will they deal with the backlash? And they pretty much answered it. They're not going to pay attention. They just want to focus on themselves. And then Lauren kind of reveals this interesting thing to me, at least. She says she was hoping that Ari would come back to her after he broke up with her, but didn't think that would happen. I found that to be interesting, Jeff, that she said that she was hoping all along that she didn't move on from him after he picked Becca. She was hoping he'd come back to her and didn't think it would happen. I thought it was interesting.
It was, and it makes you wonder what other conversations were maybe had, or hint at some of those kind of things.
I mean, but even if she eliminated, she felt so strongly. There's stuff where we didn't see that makes her say that she seemed genuine about it, that she was hoping that he would come back to her. There's no reason for her to say it if it wasn't true, but then she was honest, because she said she didn't think it would happen. So there's something between them that we didn't get to see on camera throughout the show, that either they had some sort of connection or whatnot that made her feel that way. And I thought I was telling in that sense, in that moment. And, of course, Ari confirms that obviously was worth it all to him, and then Harrison utters the biggest lie of the season, I think, when he says he's happy for them, because he's not, as you can tell by all these questions and the way his demeanor was, and it's like the past hour and a half did nothing to make it seem that he would be happy for Ari and Lauren. Like, the way he has attacked them and questioned them, it just seems so ungenuine again by Chris Harrison. And I feel like Ari and Lauren were genuine in this moment, and he gives Ari the final say, which I feel was premeditated again, typical Bachelor style. And Ari kind of gets down on his knee and proposes to her, and she accepts, and they did it on camera like they should have the previous episode. And I'm sure that Neil Lane did not contribute to this ring. Probably cost more.
It's like, I'm already giving you one free ring. I'm not giving you a second.
No.
Well, the only thing I can tell you about Chris Harrison,
it cost him a few house sales for sure on the market. In Arizona.
I mean, actually, you're right about that. I mean, but see,
And then Harrison, to end it off, Harrison kind of, it kind of bothered me. It didn't really show, but you could see on the side of the camera, he's like begrudgingly clapping and like with a disgusted look on his face. You could tell how forced his like clapping of Harrison was when he proposed, and they kind of, they were joyous. They were both joyous, Lauren and Ari. And they quickly, as Harrison was kind of doing this uncomfortably, they like really kind of stormed off the stage and went to their family who was there in the audience to congratulate him, and they just disappeared. And that segment all ended. It was just so wrapped up so quick and just folded in, and it's like, hey, do your proposal and get the hell out, that sort of thing. And they didn't want to be there either. It was very quickly and forced and pushed out.
Yeah, the funny thing about this show, and again, the idea of sort of having it both ways or playing both sides of it. The Bachelor reminds me a little bit of the cliches about, when you dance with the devil, you don't change him, he changes you. And what Harrison is doing, I think, rather blatantly, but maybe understandably, is saving face for the show and maybe saving face for himself, because they look pretty bad here. As bad as Ari looks, they look bad too, because they filmed it. They didn't tell Becca. They put it on television for that painful long period of time with, the different camera work for it that became such a talking point, a water cooler sort of discussion the next day. And they got their asses handed to them. They got taken to task as much as Ari did. They're as bad as Ari is in the views of social media and a lot of the trollers and the haters and everything else out there. And shit, they can't have that. They want you to come back for the next show and still love them and make it appointment television. So what does Chris Harrison and ABC do? Well, they play both sides of it. Well, we'll go along with you and show all this, but then we'll also distance ourselves just a little bit from Ari. Yep. And I've said this all season.
They've done this. They've done this a lot.
They've done this a lot. They like do it all season. They know what the thing is going to end up, and so they start to edit it that way. And they started that about halfway through here. If you watch the first 3 or 4 episodes, they liked Ari. He was funny. He was charming. He was all over Becca M. He was all over the mom. I forget her name. Even Crystal, he was kind of having the hots with her and everything else. And about halfway through, by then, as they're editing, they realize, we now know what the ending of this, and it's not a good ending. They started to edit against Ari. They started to edit in his waffling and his uncertainty, and all he could do now with Becca M was bring up her age. And Becca M, they liked her a lot still all the way to the end, because they always portrayed her sympathetically. Even here, they're putting her on stage, to your point about you didn't like what Becca M was saying there. If ABC didn't want to sort of save their bacon a little bit, they didn't have to put Becca M on stage, but Becca M sort of speaks for them, like, let's make Ari the bad guy, which is pretty egregious. But again, the devil changes you. You don't win the devil, beat the devil. And, Chris Harrison is sort of playing it both sides. He's saying, hey, buddy, and hey, man. But then he's saying, well, what do you have to say about the people who hate you and all that? Because he knows that the tide turned against them, and they have to do a little bit of acknowledgement of that. That's what I think is kind of terrible about the show, is they set all these terrible rules, ask people to play them, and then when they fail at them, they kind of ridicule them and put them down. But like we said, if they didn't ask for the ring, if there wasn't that incentive, you know how much those Neil Lane rings are? They're like $60,000. I mean, come on. It's like, who's ever going to give a $60,000 engagement ring to anybody unless you're Jack Nicholson or a celebrity in Hollywood? But the whole thing is this artifice, but they pull these people in, and it's like Scientology. They kind of take every last cent and shred of human dignity, and then you're stuck sort of in their web.
Now I will let you, like Chris Harrison gave Ari the forum to speak. I'm giving you the floor to speak on your thoughts on Ari, whatever you've been trying to get through.
I've said pretty much everything that I said. Yeah. I agree with you on that. I feel a little bit of sympathy for him. I do not think he was ready for this. I do not think he was anybody's first choice, and that's why he was a bad choice. He talks about being ready for this and being mature. He was not. He demonstrated that he was not. Now, maybe this will ultimately end up better than we'd hoped for, and he'll stay with her and everything else. But Lauren is not a winner. There's nothing about her that's particularly fascinating or compelling. He left 6 candidates on the floor that he could have picked who would have been much better choices for him. He kicked his ass, as his dad said, been mature, interesting people that would have been partners with him, but he wanted the subservient racer's athlete's wife. Not to say that Lauren is awful in any way. She's just not interesting. She's just not particularly good television even. But my last reserve, and I'll let you set this up because I know you think I'm getting ahead of you throughout this, is a little bit of shade that I want to throw at our new Bachelorette. So I'll let you set that up.
Bachelorette.
Well, I think I've said everything I can say about Ari.
Okay. Cool. Now my turn.
Okay.
What he, what I think of Ari is that he's one of my favorite bachelors.
Wow. This is so different. You hated him 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I did. But he's grown on me and grown on me, and the last 2 episodes proved why he's grown on me.
Oh.
Here's yes, Jeff. Everyone.
First chink in the armor, Jim.
No. This is a hot take, okay? I'm going to give you a hot take, and it's a real hot take. All these haters, all these things. Let me ask everyone, what is this show about? Who was this show about? It was about Ari. He is the Bachelor. It is not the Bachelorette Becca M, the Bachelorette Tia. It is about Ari. It's about his story. If we want to talk about the concept of stories here, it's about his show. This is his show. Like it or not, they pegged him as the guy. They picked him as the guy, and they got to roll with him as the guy because that is his season. This is his show. Right. This is about his love. This is about who he finds, who gives a crap who Tia wants or who Becca M wants or how things were done. This is about Ari, okay? And it ultimately leads to who does Ari want to be with in the end. This is about his story. Granted, Becca got caught in the crossfire. Becca, Minnesota Becca, she got crossed in a crossfire. She kind of became the victim of the situation. But this is about a guy looking for love. Jeff, if I was Ari and I was in the same position, I would have done the exact same damn thing. I kid you not. Why? Because I rather make that mistake technically and own up on it and correct it than live a life of unhappiness, of regret, of being forced to be in a situation you don't want to be just because of a mistake you made and what the backlash is going to be. This guy has balls. This guy's got complete I think he does have credibility. He does have honesty. Does he have a problem with the way he projects things and kind of how infatuated he is with his fairy tale that he has in his mind? Yes. I think that's a problem of him owning up to certain things and wanting to feel that machismo and stuff. But believe me, there's a lot of guys who want to feel that attention from a woman, and they just need a woman like Lauren. And that's what he realized. The more he was with Becca, and he wouldn't have realized this unless he was with her like he was, that he thought that shit, she's not really for me. As much as my family pushed me to be with her, as much as everyone wanted me to be with her, as much as I thought I could have been with her because she's the right choice in my mind on the surface, she's not in the heart because she's just not the right woman for him. And it's okay. It's okay to realize that someone's not right for you. And that's what he realized. And you know what? When he talks about sorting out his thoughts, don't blame him. Don't hate the player. Hate the game. Because this guy legitimately probably had issues and needed to sort himself out because this is projected on him, as he said, a mile a minute, forced to make a decision that he was clearly not ready for. He made the mistake and he owned up to it that he shouldn't have proposed to this woman and that he shouldn't have gone with it. But I guarantee you, he was forced by the show and pressured behind the scenes that we don't know or hear about, how he needs to make a decision, how he needs to give a proposal, and he went along with the show. He was a company guy until the show screwed him, chewed him up, made him the villain, and then Chris Harrison has the audacity to be a jerk off and just constantly shun him and ask this guy, try to make him a villain and put him into uncomfortable bad situations during the tell-all, by asking this question, can you trust, him, this guy? Couldn't even address him by his name. F you, Chris Harrison, because you're part of the conglomerate here that screwed this guy and put him in a bad situation where he had to make himself look bad. And think about it. This isn't Chris Soules. This isn't some schmuck from the farm. This guy has a name. He's more known and famous coming into this than any of these women were. He's got a family history, and it's a known popular family that's been in the public eye. This guy doesn't want to make himself look bad. I mean, especially if he has a name to uphold for his family. His father's a very famous race car driver. I mean, these are like people that come from a higher class in a sense, or at least a pedestal when it comes to fame and being known around the world. So he doesn't want to come off bad just because fucking Chris Harrison's gonna put him in a light or bad light in his show. You are entitled to make mistakes. Everyone is. His just got played out on national TV. For him to realize that, hey, it's not his fault that he maybe wants some woman who is going to shine his trophies and tell him he's the best, because you know what, we all have our types, and if she's okay with it, who the hell are we to judge and say that, oh well, he went for a woman that's just gonna say yes to him? If they work together, if they're happy together, like they kept on referencing this throughout this tell-all, good for them. The hell with Chris Harrison and these loser trolls at home typing away on their social media and their phones and being angry at the world. Sorry that Becca came out losing bad, but Becca is to blame for a lot of this, because any woman who had that much self-respect would have put a damn end to this right away when she heard him say that he says, has other thoughts, he wants to contact her. She should have killed it right there, not drag this out. She allowed him to drag this out. She allowed him to contact her. She was sticking around. She empowered him to the point of allowing him to continue this double relationship. So she is to blame for this whole thing of not taking control of her own situation. When she heard it, be like, hey, you still have feelings for her? Go pursue her. I'm done. We're not continuing this. But she allowed him. She still wanted the comfort of him being around. So she's to blame for this too. But you know what? I give the guy credit. He stood up for himself. He went after what he wanted. He realized he made a mistake. He didn't even drag it out for months or years or live the Bachelor lie for the show to get the People magazine covers or get the good attention. He took the onus on himself. He said he wanted to take the blame. He got the blame. He knew he was going to get the blame. If he wanted to be, the beloved guy, be the Nick Viall, be a snake like that, or some of these other guys, then you know what? He would have went along with it, and he would have waited till maybe after the final rose, and then he would have done it behind the scenes when the cameras stopped rolling and stopped being around there. Where he chose to show this to America, I give him credit, because he was bold. He knew the backlash, and he wanted it to be documented. So screw everyone else. Let them be happy, whether it works out for them or not. You know what? The guy made the best decision for him. Clearly, he's happy now, and so is she. She took him back. If they're going to work out, great. If not, at least they did it honestly, and they took a chance for something. He was honest to himself. He was honest to his heart. He did not want to be in a relationship that made him unhappy just because Becca's heartbroken about it and screwed. What? It happens. He did the courtesy of you to let you go early than not let you go months or years later when you're invested. Yes, he shouldn't have gotten down on his knee and proposed. He cheated her from that moment, but blame the show, blame that big-nosed fool Chris Harrison for that, for forcing to do these kinds of engagement, not him that much, even though he's to blame too for it. So that's my take. I'm glad for him. I'm happy that he made his right choice and he went back to his. He's got balls. He's got courage. He doesn't give a crap what the world thinks of him, which is evident, and I give him credit for that. And he gave a big middle finger to called out the Bachelor for forcing him into this situation, and screw you, Chris Harrison, for trying to give him the cold shoulder and not acknowledge him. I'm happy with Ari. This is what a good Bachelor does, at least an honorable guy. I find honorable things he's done. Yes, he's got some growing up to do. He maybe needs a kick in ass, but that's a personality thing that that he needs to learn on his own. But as far as the decision comes, I thought he was the most mature because he did the most mature thing. He went after what he wanted. Didn't fake a Nick Viall pick a girl in Paradise like he did with that one girl, or pick a Vanessa Germaldi when they knew he wasn't into her from the second that he had to pick her. But he wrote it out just so he can be on Dancing with the Stars. Blame those people. Don't hate the player, this being Ari. Hate the game and some of the previous players that played it.
Well, I mean, I think you raised some good points there. He did do something that he had to know in his heart was going to make him look terrible, and yet it was how he felt, and he stuck with that and went with it, and that had to take a certain amount of guts, I grant you. But at the same time, I don't believe in death get bed conversions, eradicating everything else of a life that somebody said simply because as they're about to make their maker, they make one good decision or come clean. I mean, if you want to talk about better Bachelors, I can point to Sean Lowe and say I think he played his season very well with being honest about why he was there, what he wanted, and who he chose, and didn't make some of the rather big blunders that Ari did. I would argue also that Ari has not been honest with himself. He doesn't want an equal. He doesn't want a strong woman. He wants a very subservient woman. He wants the athlete's way. But he's never said those words, Jim. He's always given lip service to all the other stuff. And that's where it happened halfway through the season, and we talked about this in previous episodes about we couldn't believe these people were let go because we thought he had relationships with them. We thought he was really getting along with them, and it was the type of woman that he described wanting. He didn't want those women. He doesn't want somebody who's smart and strong and equal like CN or somebody who's capable of carrying on conversation and being their own person. He wants somebody who is very much letting his light shine the light on her face. And that's fine, but he's never been honest about it. So I don't give him credit for that.
He can't be because the show wouldn't allow
No, that's bullshit, Jim. He can say anything he wants. If he can come back and suddenly say he's changing his mind, why can't he say, you know what? I really like a quieter girl. I don't like somebody who's so chatty or full of herself or whatever like that. I like somebody who's kind of quiet and more introspective. He never said those kind of words, but that's what he wanted. Instead, he talked about he wanted equals. He wants strong. He wants mature. He doesn't want a mature relationship, which is about equality and women being treated as equals and making decisions. He wants the fantasy. There's nothing noble in any of that, but I will give him the credit. I will give him the credit for doing something was patently unpopular and would make him look terrible, still in the sake of him being true to what he wanted and going with the woman that he ultimately really wanted. But he didn't play that. He didn't say that. He didn't recognize that until the very, very end. And I'm judging the whole season. Now, we'll see if the proof is in the pudding, if they last. If that does, great. If not, I think you're going to regret saying that because he wasn't even right then either. But I don't think there's anything particularly noble in going along with this. Here's the other thing too is you can blame it on the game and all that, but he signed up for the game. All right. So anybody who makes the decision to seek love and be the guy who's going to be on the show has to take the slings and arrows along with it. So I don't have too much separation of I'm willing to blame Chris Harrison. I'm willing to blame the Bachelor show and the game. Yes, hate the game too, but I'm not. I don't think he's one of their better players. Maybe he ended up in a spot where he's happy, and I want him to be happy. I applaud that. I applaud the fact that he was willing to make this incredibly unpopular decision that would bring out all these awful trolls and stuff like that. But I don't think he was particularly honest as he went through this. I don't think he knows himself. I don't think he has the maturity. I think that you have to have to weigh a little bit how much you love him, because he's not Sean Lowe. Sean Lowe was really good as a Bachelor, very true to himself, very true to everybody. I think he played it right. He played the game to his advantage, knowing full well how the game manipulates and not letting it get the best of him. Comparison to Nick Val, yeah, Nick is ridiculous, and 4 times is not the charm. But Ari, sort of had that deathbed conversion where he comes off looking a little bit better at the end. But I think everything up until then, you certainly cannot compliment this man who sat there like an idiot, not saying he was sorry to a woman who he's letting down for 45 minutes. There's nothing admirable. There's nothing ballsy. There's nothing great and cool about that. That's a pretty awful shit right there.
Here's the thing. Listen, who knows how to act in these situations? We're seeing this live. We're getting to peek in on that whole situation. It's like,
I think you could say you're sorry. People who make mistakes say they're sorry. That's pretty simple. We're taught that as children. If you've hurt somebody, you say you're sorry. It took him 45 minutes to recognize that he was the person who screwed up. It wasn't Becca. Yeah, maybe she enabled him by making those calls, but right off the bat, he could have just said, "I'm really sorry to do this, but I made a terrible decision."
Here's the guy that doesn't know how to act in the situation. He doesn't know how to really act in that situation.
Well, we're supposed to let him go on that? I think at 36 years old, you know enough to be gracious and say you're sorry.
But it doesn't make him a bad guy that he doesn't know how to act in
I think it makes him immature and not admirable. I don't think there's anything ballsy about being that oblivious.
Okay, immature, sure, but admirable. I think he proved he was admirable right after the fact. And it's like in that situation, when you're dealing in the heat of a moment, you can't play the perfect play.
He had to think about it. That's not heat of the moment. He was calculating. He knew he had to be very deliberate about that. That's a conscientious decision. He went over and over in his head probably for weeks. And he didn't say he was sorry. The simpleness of that. I'll give you a lot of what you said, Jim, but I don't think he's that admirable. I think he's not that courageous. I think he ended up happy, and you're right. It is his season, and ultimately, if he ends up happy, then we should be happy for him. But let's not say he's a saint, because he didn't play this much better than Nick Viall, let me tell you. Sean Lowe, I'll put him up on the pedestal of a guy who played it right all the way through. He's worthy of that adoration. I don't think this guy is.
I'll compare Nick Viall when Nick Viall was never genuine about any intention he's done. He faked everything for the camera. He literally is the peon of this show. And the guy that follows everything they do.
Well, they haven't had very good Bachelors by and large, but I mean, I think Sean Lowe was admirable. I think at the end, some of the other people who've played, I'm not necessarily sure all of them going way back and how they've ended up. I think there's been admirable bachelorettes who've played it well. Some of the people who are still together and done well with their seasons. But I'm just saying, I don't think there's a lot to admire in this show. I think a lot of it is ludicrous and silly and funny. Sure. I'm happy for Ari. I want him to be happy. I think he played the last part pretty well. I'm not so he should have gotten engaged right away again. But hey, if he feels it, he feels it. Right. I just hope it lasts. But I don't give him quite as much credit as you do. That's the only difference. It's the degrees, I think.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Let's talk about some shade for the other person, which to me points to the silliness of the game. I mean, I think Becca turned it around pretty fast. I think a lot of hers are admirable. But when she said, well, now I've got a story. Exactly. Now you've got the story.
Well, she's Bachelorette. Yep. And it's like, you know what? And here's the thing, Jeff. We've been pitching Christina Schulman for the longest time. Yeah. There's a late kind of run of Vanessa Grimaldi that was kind of teasing us.
Right.
They knew from day one they were going to build her up. They're going to make her. She's the build-up bear. It's build-up Bachelorette with her. They literally formulated her, constructed her. They kept her quiet. They kept her in the background through most of the season. Remember, we kept on saying like, there's nothing about Becca that stands out. She's just so flat. She's just so.
We thought she was. We didn't know who she was. Yeah.
Because they kept her in their place holding. They let Becca M do the talking. They let Crystal do the ridiculous thing because they were stashing. They were literally stashing Becca to let the other ones like make a scene, let them get through the season. The other ones are just pawns in the game. The Becca M's, the Tias, Crystal, they're just pawns in the game to get through the season, right?
Well, I'm not sure anybody's there for entirely the right reasons. I mean, they're there to raise their profile or
sure, and for
get some work, or
give Peter.
Beck M was there for Peter, as she said in all the interviews post the show, that she had signed up hoping it would be Peter. I think a lot of the men who are now going to be part of Becca's season were genuinely thinking it was going to be Christina Schulman. All the indicators seem to be there. What I don't like about Becca, and automatically sort of puts me a little bit like, ugh, here we go again. Nobody ever really quite gets it. I guess maybe it's the show. But when she said, well, now it's all part of my story. Yeah, she's like a fictional character. Like now she's got the backstory that you need for the drama of this show. And then she says things like, I'm going to be the best bachelor at damn bachelor possible I can be, or something like that. And it's right away, she's already sort of bending to the bullshit of the show. So she certainly got onto that train pretty fast. I think she got over it a little too fast when they dangled that carrot in front of her. And that makes me not feel really great about her walking out of this, because as much as she is the victim here, she turned into the opportunist pretty damn fast.
Incredibly fast, Jeff. And this is what bothers me. Here it's about characters.
Yeah,
Ari's the biggest villain. He's Juan Pablo, 2.0 or worse even, or whatever.
Jason Mesnick.
Becca is the angel. Yeah. She's the victim. And here we go. Suddenly, I loved how Chris Harrison kept on shamelessly pitching her up throughout this segment, saying well, are you over him? To make sure, oh yes. And then she would follow up with oh yeah, I'm over. I'm ready to move on. I still love him. And it's but you showed us throughout the episode how Ari's moved on to Lauren. She's jumping into his arms, but Becca's looking at the videos of him online crying. You're telling me you just showed me an hour ago this footage, how heartbroken she was, and suddenly you're ready to date the world?
But see, this is part of the problem with these things is, and this is where you're right about hating the game more than the players, because they're doing the same kind of mistake that they make repeatedly on this show. And I would argue that if she was in tears crying, a month and a half ago, and it's still being played out and she hasn't had the chance to completely work it out, she still has questions for Ari, then 20 minutes later, they name her as the Bachelorette. She's no more ready for this show than a lot of these other people. And they're asking for the same problem again. I mean, love and betrayal, or love and breaking up, takes time. Yes, you want to get up on the horse again, but you don't want to get up on the thing now with the expectation is I'm ready to meet these men and get back on the horse and get that Neil Lane ring. And they're doing the same thing all over again when you have to sort of push these people into it and have them starting to talk about themselves in the third person as if they're a character on a show, because they have to play the spurned lover who now has the terrible backstory, and America supported her and wanted this princess to find her fantasy fairy tale too. It's as egregious as pushing Ari into thinking that he can find a fairy tale ending to his life at 36 on television.
Absolutely.
It's all about television. It's all about the great show, good ratings, fantastic talk about narrative, but there's not much humanity in it.
No, there isn't, Jeff, and that's completely right, because she just did such a 180. It's if you're paying attention to her, if you felt bad, if you were all those, what I call them, the mascots, all those girls, they're mascots. They're there to just, you feel so bad for heartbreaking. Oh, how are you dealing with it? Why do we even have this after a final rose? If she's so over it, why are they bringing Ari out to face her? I actually thought genuinely Ari was uncomfortable and nervous, but she supposedly knows already she's going to be the Bachelorette. It's is she poking the bear and now just kind of getting a giggle and then asking pointless questions?
Well, how about the fact that she was willing to sit there and be humiliated in front of a crew, humiliated in front of television audiences with something they've never done before, an unedited, cringeworthy 30-minute shot of her basically sobbing and being dumped. That's, not even given sort of the dignity of, well, we're going to cut away from her. No, we're going to the bathroom and we're watching her kind of doing this stumbly bumbly thing where she starts to pack again and look like a complete, schmuck. And, 20 minutes later, I'm ready to be the best damn bachelorette possible. I want to do this show well. And
the baby's in a scrapbook.
That's
Jeff.
Right. The baby's in the scrapbook. And it's so bad that she's willing to go along with, and we've got 5 guys that we like to start off the show with already. Like, they don't even have, the paint isn't even dry. The paint isn't even dry on the writing in that scrapbook, and already she's moving on. I think she's a bad choice. It should have been Christina, who's been through the game, seen it all for up close, has a little bit sense of self, is not this terrible, vulnerable person. I mean, I think this is a disaster waiting to happen, because she's already starting to film this week, and she's barely been able to talk about it and find closure with Ari, but she's ready to get back on the horse and be the entire show. It's bullshit.
And here's the thing, and it's
shame on Harrison and the Bachelorette for doing that. They did it out of face saving, but they're shaming her, and they're setting up for disaster, I think.
And it's like, and then what kind of
maybe
bothered
it'll be great television, but it's going to be an emotional disaster, I think.
They bring out the women, it's like they bring them out on this little couch, like all the women in the audience, the mascot cheerleaders, yes. And it's like, they're all so happy for her. And they're like, literally like cheerleaders just jumping up, like
so thrilled that she's the new Bachelor. It's like, no, you shouldn't be thrilled for her. Right. She's not ready for this. She just got over this horrible humiliation. She was robbed of her engagement, but she's ready to now meet contestants and be the glammed out beauty queen. It's BS.
It's like you're her friends apparently. Yet you're so
inept. If they're really friends, they'd say, "Don't do it."
And also, it's like, if they're really that friendly, you think each and every one didn't want them to be the Bachelorette themselves? You think Kendall or Becca M didn't want it, or Tia especially didn't want to be the Bachelorette? Of course they did. Yeah. So this whole fake Price is Right audience member excitement,
jumping up and down,
it's fake. It's fake to me, and it's like they kept on showing. The worst thing about it too is they kept on showing these cutaways of like Kendall crying at one point when Becca was talking,
and burrowing in Becca M's shoulder or whatever. Holy shit!
Yeah, it was weird, Jeff.
Yeah,
and the thing, what made me laugh actually is that when they brought him up on this tiny couch, like they're like inseparable best friends, yet they're all finalists. We know that Becca and Tia were just hating on each other last time we saw them.
Yeah, that's right.
In the tell-all, they still had so much heat against each other, but they're now sitting on each other's laps.
I know, now they're all cool with each other. Yeah,
everyone's cool. But the one funny thing that came out of it, it's like Harrison tried to be funny. He's like, suddenly Harrison's mood got so much better. He's smiling. He's happy now. He calls them like the most awkward couch ever. And Caroline says, "No, you're awkward," which was the best.
Yes, that was funny.
That was funny, but it's
it's funny when you think back about the shows. I think you could really count on one hand, maybe 3 fingers, the relationships that probably were right. And I think they were the ones where the Bachelor or the Bachelorette was pretty strong about bending the game a little bit to the way they wanted to play it. And to your point, Ari did that at the end. I think he bent the game to his thing, even if it was hugely unpopular. He was trying to actually find the happiness in the real relationship he ultimately wanted. So I give him credit for that, to your point. But you look at Sean Lowe or even Trista Wren. I mean, I know I'm going way back to the very first season of The Bachelorette, but I remember watching that and thinking, this girl knows what she wants and she knows what she likes and she's got it kind of figured out. And there was a calm to her. I felt that, and she was enjoying it. She was enjoying the ride. And I think Sean Lowe, maybe he made some very smart decisions, like not doing the fantasy suite and becoming the born again virgin. So it became less about who's the hottie throwing themselves at and promising, quickie sex that all is the vibe of LA and television and entertainment industry. Sure. And just looking for somebody who he felt was really a sweet girl that he, I think, wanted to date, but, sort of turned it into, yes, this is somebody I really have fallen for and want to spend time with. I think some of these people, and now with Becca all over again, they're setting her up to fail by throwing her into this. Well, America wants her. Well, screw America. Don't listen to the trolls. This girl has just had her heart broken. She hasn't even gotten closure until the show. And you're already not only making her the Bachelorette and saying, okay, you're going to be the Bachelorette, but we're going to give you 3 months to recover. Nope. We've got to start the show right now. Are you ready to meet some hot guys? And embarrass her with all that. And it's just, even there, she was kind of wanting to be the marionette and let them pull her strings. But you could see shit, am I really doing this? and that isn't good.
And how awkward was when
that
they
doesn't
started
bode well. And those guys were coming on too strong.
Oh yeah, but that's the thing. That's what I wanted to.
They were awful. They were awful. These are the best men that they've got, and they're already awful. Ugh.
They were so uncomfortable and awkward. And the first guy comes with this, like, the guy. He made me cringe. The first guy, the African American.
Terrible. Well, and he wouldn't leave. He wouldn't leave.
He was so uncomfortable. He kept on like liching onto her. Like he wouldn't let her go, and he just kept on repeating himself. Like he was lingering to the point.
It was all about him.
It was all about him. They needed a producer to get him the hell off that stage finally, because she just wouldn't leave, and she's just standing there like, okay, He was just so pushy. Then the next guy like comes up with a goofy smile. He almost ripped her arms off. He was like pulling and swinging on her, which was so awkward. Yeah. Then that idiot with the banjo comes singing awfully, just looking like the biggest dork ever. Then you had Darius comes out, and I love how he addressed her as like, "Hey, man." Did you hear him say that to her?
I know. I hate that when guys don't realize, okay, you're talking to a woman now. She's not a man,
Right.
I mean, you can say guys to a bunch of girls like, "Hey, guys, what are you doing?" Right. That's acceptable, but not, "Hey, man, how are you?"
It was just so bad. And then the best for last was, Blake and Bradley. For me, Bradley, the horse, was a lot more impressive than Blake, the guy. And, it's like, and it's like, and then they had to do that fake little innuendo. Chris Harrison's like, well, let's bring out a real horse, and like her getting off the horse, or getting on the horse again and dating. It's like this stupid thing, and she's like in this tight dress, and they need to like get her on the thing. The guy's awkward too, and it's just like such an awkward moment. There's a live horse in the studio audience. They're trying to play up some like, oh, she's getting back on the horse, and today. It was just so cartoonish. It's the same thing we always talk about this show. It's just so lame and like bogus.
Disingenuous.
It's so
fake and they just fall right back into again. Okay, we've had this cringeworthy laying low of this poor girl, and she's been part of it. She knew of it, and she should have seen it coming, and maybe she enabled it, as you said. And what does she expect? She's on a show, but then right away she's willing to play the character. She's willing to be, well, now I've got the story, and I'll just try to be the best bachelor and make everybody at ABC really like me. Oh my God. And that's the good person who's going to make a smart decision about a guy that's right for her when she's already acquiescing. Maybe she was right for Ari. She has been more than willing to acquiesce. He might be saying, hey, wait a minute. Where was that Becca? I thought Lauren was the one who was letting me do kind of call all the shots. This girl is letting ABC do what she wouldn't let me do.
Exactly. And it just ended on such a sour, lame note, and it's just so much fakeness. It was so, Jeff, to me was like, so we talk about the food being props. This was a prop. How they all like propped it up, and these girls turn into mascots, and they're all of them are going to paradise probably. They're a few minutes of fame.
That's for sure. All those 6 girls are going. Beck, M, Kendall, Tia, they're all going to be down there. Caroline, she's auditioned and she got in. So, and they're also running out of girls there too, because they've done that a few seasons now for the summer show. So they need at least 5 or 6 girls from this season. They'll probably bring back, what's her name from the Winter Games again too. The one who was, I forget her name, but, yeah. They should bring back that sushi girl, Yoshi or whatever her name was. They should bring her back. Like, I cannot tan. What? Skin too white. No, get burned. Whatever.
It's like this show. God. We knew that Winter Games and Paradise was a cartoony kind of make fun of itself, but now they kind of tried to keep the season, honest and more serious in that sense. But it now just turned into such a sham. Well, it becomes so cartoony like Paradise, all of it. And it's like, are they doing this because the sad part is the Bachelor Nation actually eats it up. They actually
that's what's so funny about this. See, for me, And I will say this on behalf of my wife, who was not able to broadcast tonight. We enjoy The Bachelor in Paradise a lot because it seems to just be goofy. You know, it's a little more obvious about it's sexy because people run around in bikinis and you know, the swimsuits, and it's out in the sun, and you know, they even treat it cheesy right from the opening credits where you know, they do it like it's a sitcom. So they're doing kind of the comedy version of it, and it's much easier to watch and fun. And yeah, if you don't make it, then you're going to go home and you don't get a rose, and it seems more honest. Like, well, hey, I was here to find love and I didn't, so what the hey, I'm going home. It's not too big a deal if I go home, unless you're Ashley I, who cries about everything. But this show still has this bullshit halo of seriousness. Like, this is really important. And, you know, Chris Harrison puts on that Dr. Phil kind of philosophical, I'm really here kind of being your therapist. It's so ridiculous. And I don't know, I think this show in its form has become almost more of a joke than the one that's trying to go for the laughs.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it's like, look at the last few seasons. Look at the people they've had. They're so unlikable. I mean, you talk about Rachel, Lindsay. How likable is she? You know?
Oh, and they don't bring her back they barely bring her back or mention her at all. I mean, she came back as a judge for the Winter Games only because she's the most recent female that they can go out and grab, and you know, ostensibly she's still with her choice, but she was terrible. She came off terrible with her begging, all but demanding that Peter go along with the television narrative that she.
Same thing with Nick.
Yeah, I mean, Nick too. And he picked the woman, like you said, Vanessa wasn't likable the entire time. And why do you pick her? And then, of course, after Dancing with the Stars is done, they break up. And I mean, there's no soul searching or going back and going back to at least her life in Montreal in her classes. No, she's hawking hair products and makeup and wanting to be the new Bachelorette and everything else. Like, man, 6 months ago you were engaged. I guess that didn't mean much to you. It was all just, you know, a vessel, I think, to get some fame and money.
Yeah, and it's just they just literally, for the life of them, cannot find the right contestant, Jeff. Here I am doing this fucking podcast for 3 hours and they can't find me because I'm doing this podcast about them in this show, and yet they're picking a Ben Higgins or Chris Soules or Nick Viall. Like, listen, you fucks, here I am. I've been doing this podcast for 3 years talking about all these train wrecks, and you fuckers can't even get me back to an audition.
You're doing this for the right reasons, Jim. It's really admirable. Well, but you know, here's the funny thing about it. And you know I'm never going to talk you into liking Beck M, though she gave a very good interview online to Entertainment Tonight for about half an hour. And she's very knowledgeable and knows what's going on and really self-aware and perceptive. And yet she went on a TV show to find love. I mean, as soon as you do that, you're setting yourself up for the dance with the devil. And anything that happens to you, either whether it's humiliation or left field surprises or, you know, anything like that, you have only yourself to blame because you signed up for it. And the show is always going to make sure that they come out better than you do, because they get final edit and they get to show what they want.
Absolutely. And you know what? And Ari, they came into the season hyping him up, you know, 36-year-old, he's mature in this. What did he end up being? Soon as he didn't do something they didn't like, disposed, Jeff, he becomes...
they turned on him.
They will turn on anyone, okay? They will turn on anyone. It's an unforgiving, ruthless show and industry, in a sense, you know, where it's about their edits and the people in the back and Chris Harrison, who's the face of the franchise. If something doesn't go according to company ways, you know, the Bachelor ways, you will be disposed, and they will make sure to humiliate you along the way, you know, to do that.
Right. You're right.
So, you know, we get Becca. I'm not excited for this season. I don't know what we're looking forward to. These five guys were
here's my question for you, and even to some degree, It's exactly the complaint that we've had week in and week out about this show is, who is Becca? I mean, she seemed like a nice girl. She seemed like a composed girl. She handled herself quite well. She didn't cry ugly, and she was kind of calm. And even after the final rose show, she came off with a certain amount of bearing and calm. But what's her personality? I don't know what her personality is. I mean, I can tell you what the girls who are going down to Paradise have as personality, because they were the more interesting contestants who they got rid of too early. But with this one, again, they've kind of picked a girl who very, very curious to know what her personality will be, because as of now, I couldn't tell you.
I can't either, Jeff. Because they tried to give her a lot of attention in the last two, the finale and what happened afterwards. But the thing is, she didn't separate herself. She did not. So we kept on saying, it's like, wow, Becca's going to get into this final or to the final four. She was the most surprising final four finalist at Hometowns, because, like, what did she do? Did she just hide behind the scenes and just skid by when everyone else was failing and falling in their face? It's like we never saw a connection with Ari and her. It just like they were just so cool with each other, but there was nothing special about them. And it just and she never got to reveal herself. And this is where the show does, by stashing her, like I said, and hiding her, they do themselves a disservice, because they didn't let her establish her story or her brand or her persona.
You're right. And one of the things that I wish the show would do, and it's one that you and I have talked about all the time, and Paige and I watch and talk about all the time, is they always show the same conversations. And I suppose they probably have a whole set of rules that they don't share with the public, like, this is what we will show. This is what we will not show. This is how far we will go with the conversation. This is where we call the, draw the line. But they never talk about anything except the relationship when they're on a date. They might pay a little lip service to, oh, wasn't that band great? Or, oh, this was fun doing the Moulin Rouge thing, or, I get to act out, or, hey, girls, this is fun. The Glow wrestlers they're playing a role and they're intimidating you, and you're not playing along with it and getting the idea that this is all an act, and let's have some fun here and, buck up and find your inner ham. But I would love to see people really talk. And I'm not saying that this has to go into serious time, but I mean, the closest they ever got to a real genuine thing, and this is why I think you and I love her and everything else, is when Christina Schulman was talking to Nick about, it's not just some, bland, boring, typical, I've heard this 1,000 times kind of dinner conversation. No, she's telling about growing up poor and beleaguered in Russia, and how she was separated from her family, and she had to make a decision, and holy crap. And Nick thinks he's got it bad. All of us in America think, oh, we've got tough kids. I grew up with a step parent. That's so tough. And yeah, it is. It's not easy. But none of us were probably starving, and being separated from the family by the government and things like that. And she was so poised, like, wow, you're sitting here after that. That was an incredible conversation. Show me more of that, because that was a real, honest, genuine, you can't fake that moment, because she was so real. And that moment was so real. And of course, Nick sent her home because he didn't know what the fuck to do with that. It was too real for him. But I wish the show had more of that, because I think they would have an opportunity to really create interesting people and show us that. They should have picked her. They should have. They made a big dumb mistake. Even if they had to pay her $500,000, she was so beloved up until the botch of the last two shows, with Becca suddenly being put into this very sad situation. She would have been one of the most blandest and uninteresting Bachelor winners ever, with no sentiment or love out there in Bachelor Nation. But because of the situation with Ari dumping her and the 30 minutes of unedited crying, that's why you should suddenly become the Bachelor. Oh, because that's your story. She doesn't have a story except for that, and it's a terrible, terrible negative column story.
But her gimmick is that she's forgotten already. She's moved on, even though all the footage dictates otherwise.
Exactly. But she says she's willing to play the game, and God help her, because it's going to chew her up and spit her out.
Yeah, it's just it's an embarrassing way of going about it, and that's what it leaves me with a sour taste in my mouth, and just kind of not looking forward to this season because it's just more of the BS.
It is, and the producers now, as they're picking these contestants, are going to pick the one who has a similar thing that will rip the scab off of Becca's wound, and then they'll get that crying jig like, this is just like what happened to me with Ari, and I feel betrayed again all over again, and it's great TV, but they're setting her up to be ripped asunder.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Those five clowns that came out certainly didn't raise any sort of excitement at all. Just they picked 5. I don't know if they're planning these guys to last any longer or they're going to be going fast, but boy, was that
I think they should have paid you and Reality Steve whatever it would take to get you two to be contestants on the show. Knowing the show so well, it would be funny to see you play the game and play them back. That would have been something out of Ocean's 11, I think.
We get Becca now. I just don't see her as a bachelorette. I think she's too plain and too simple and too unfitting of a personality needed to be a bachelorette. Even hell, you even take Rachel. At least she had that dog in her or fire in her, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, she was spicy and snotty and opinionated and kind of sassy. But there's none of that in Becca. I mean, but there you go. You've got a couple of girls on that couch that would have been more interesting, but Bachelor in Paradise is going to benefit from their participation.
Yeah, and we'll see. That might be something to wait for now that they took a dump on the finale of their own Bachelor show and wanted to move on to this.
Yep.
We'll see what happens on May 28th. Boy, I'm so glad I get a break from this crap.
Yes, indeed. Well, this is fun. We had a little bit of an argument, a little quarrel, but nothing too bad.
That's how important relationships and friendships are.
It makes for good podcast too. See,
this season,
Jeff and Jim were fighting. Did you hear that? It's about 2 hours and 15 minutes in. If you can last that long,
right? Well, maybe not, but probably won't. But we did. So you get a first with everything, and this is what it came down to. It took 12 weeks for The Bachelor to get us to disagree. They manipulated us, Jeff, and brought us to this point where we had to. We had to have this reaction.
I know you not, but I still like Becca M. Becca Martinez.
I'm going to kill this podcast before you keep on bringing that up.
Oh, I'm going to get you to date her yet.
Hell no.
If Peter says no, she's going to say yes to Jim Alexander.
They should know. Well,
Jim Alexander.
Oh, no. I mean, why date out of those 5? Well, we know I like Caroline. Yes. That's a given. The spokesperson is.
There's nothing. Becca M has not grown on you at all.
At time, I feel that. Okay, I feel that she's kind of more. I give her a sense of maturity that the show didn't or tried to. I think she's more mature, definitely, than her age dictates. She makes some good, bold points. That look is just not going to change. And
well, she's been blonde. She's had long hair.
Well, hey, I saw those pictures. That was a different person. Hey, we can start talking about this.
Would you accept Becca M with the hair under the arms that she was showing off on Instagram? Would that be a deal breaker for you, Jim?
That is a deal that's broken already, and not in a good way. This is a tarnished deal. This is a deal that's broken more so than Ari and Becca's relationship.
No bohemian hippie types for Jim Alexander, ladies and gentlemen.
I'll keep on being single, Jeff, and pretend
I will refuse. I will be celibate before I accept hairy armpits.
I will keep on struggling and fumbling my life away through online dating before I.
Oh, well, this is fun, my friend. Thank you for having me.
Great. I mean, we might chime in if we hear big Bachelor news come out in the next couple of months before Becca graces us again. We'll step on and we'll talk about it. And if there's any big Bachelor breaking news, such as Ari and Lauren probably breaking up in the next couple of weeks. So
All right. I will be here for you if you need me.
Jeff, how can people reach you?
They can follow me on Twitter at Jeff York Writer. I am also on Instagram at Jeff York Chicago, and I write a movie review blog called The Establishing Shot, as well as host a movie podcast called Paige to Screen.
That's good. And Paige to Screen.
Still not really on the social media. If you want to talk to Paige, you can find her through me.
Oh, stop it. You don't even know how to find her, much less.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can't even find her. She's been absentee here.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I can.
Pure co-host.
It's easier for Becca's ex to find her in Peru than it is for you to find me. Okay,
at least to get her to the podcast to record. You're right. That's hilarious. That was the best one. It's like he just happened to find her in all of Peru.
Did we forget also that Becca's now the Bachelorette? Will he be making a trip now too?
No. Is he going to show up like fourth episode and crash the party? Yeah. Oh, there you go. That's some producer saying, we've already got this guy who still thinks she's his. Yeah.
Right. They were going to roll that part of her story. now
evil laugh.
Now it makes sense, Jeff, why they pitched him, why they paid for his ticket to come down there. Because that's part of her story now. Remember?
He's going to come back. He's going to come back like, you can't be doing this. Yeah, if you're going to look for men, I want to be one of the contestants. You know what? You watch. He'll show up that night. He'll be one of the contestants. Hey, if I have to get you back, I'll be one of the contestants. I'll fight for you. I'll fight these 26 guys. You watch.
Jeff, I guarantee you there's a reason why they brought him in. Because remember, it didn't pay off anything to the episode at all.
Right.
When we saw it, it was just 15 minutes of filler. But this is them planting a seed. It literally was. They brought this guy out because they could have found 24 other boyfriends of these other girls and brought him out at some point, right?
Yeah, see, that's going to be the last guy who they roll up to the mansion. Is that guy's going to get out of the car and say, I know you rejected me, you don't want me, but I'm here to win you back, and I want to prove to you that I'm willing to go through this to gain your love again. If they don't do that, I'd be surprised.
No, I think that's what's happening, and I think there's a reason they brought him out.
Set her back on her heels on night one. Let him know you are our marionette. We are in control of everything, including the edit.
Whatever. You can reach me on Twitter at @TheJimAlexander. You want to dispute Ari? I'll dispute it again. You want to keep on reading and see those screenshots I took of his noodle legs? You can check those out at thebacheloruniverse.com. I already forgot what my site's called. thebacheloruniverse.com or on Real Talker. That's REEL Talker.com. You get other movie content on there too if you check it out. So that's where you can see these screenshots of Noodle Man and a lot more and hear the comments that I've had. And for that, I think this is it for us. We went over 3 hours, Jeff. We literally have probably the longest Bachelor podcast in history, so screw all those other ones that claim to be top podcasts. They don't go for 3 hours plus like we did.
Well, it's if the show goes for 5 hours, then I think we can certainly do a podcast that wraps it all up in 2 hours less than that and have something that we can feel proud of.
Absolutely. Well, for that, we are off. Something tells me we'll be back before May 28th, but if not, we'll see you guys in the summer, and it'll be all warm and nice, and it's not right now in the Midwest. So, but I have a feeling we're going to get back on this, Jeff. I know we're going to do our film podcast, but you can check those out too on also, Jeff, what's your film podcast?
Paige to Screen. Yeah, Jim's going to be a guest of mine on that very soon.
So we're going to be doing that. We're going to talk.
And we're both members of the Chicago Independent Film Critics Circle, which Jim is the founder of. So.
Oh, I forgot.
Yes.
Seems forgettable at times.
Oh, you're so humble.
Very humble, just like Art. And in that case, we are signing off, and we will see you guys around. So don't be strangers. We're out.